Oh, you got the founder thing?
Yes,
I
have
should have it
indeed.
bookmarked somewhere as well.
There we go.
Thank you.
And while you're all jumping onto that, obviously I've just started the stream. We are on session 3 of our vampire game, where our coterie of ne'er-do-wells are exploring the depths of the World of Darkness version of Venice. Again, make sure I get the name of the city right, and don't say the wrong one. But yeah, last time we had you guys, you spotted a strange fellow sort of peeling a QR code off a wall. You guys went to investigate that. It was Franco and Sonia. Found him staying at the hotel, and he appeared to be basically some big tech nerd who was trying to solve this strange sort of puzzle, sort of GPS style puzzle thing that had been put online. And he was going around collecting all this stuff. You guys basically robbed all of his stuff and knocked him out, and left him like this vaguely like threatening, like, "We're watching you" message, and then pretty much just like left him like tied up in his hotel room. And went your separate way with all his ill-gotten goods. We also had Aurelio travelled to a church where it was basically built as an extension and a sort of an honorific for those who died in the plague of 1575. And inside, although the bodies had long since been moved to a specially marked plot on the graveyard island of San Michel, there were lots of small statues depicting the sort of like dress and the jobs, etc., that people would have done back in those days. And they were all facing as though they were sort of filing in a silent, non-moving line towards a statue of an angel with its arms held outstretched. Aurelio, opening his senses to the spectral world that exists unseen all around us, was almost knocked out by the sheer amount of like psychic nous that was available in the church, as virtually all of these statues served as a fetter or an anchoring device for one or more spirits. So Aurelio took one of the smallest statues, secreted it under his vestments, made his way off to his small private personal haven, and we finished off with him conducting a ritual to summon the spirit that was connected to the statue. And that the last thing we did in the session, if I remember correctly, is the shadows started to sort of get darker, and a whispering voice issued forth from the shadows. And that is pretty much straight away where we're going to pick up this evening's session. We're still on the same day, although it's getting fairly late now. It's the 2nd of January 2012. That halcyon and mythical time, 2012. So, as I've said, you're in your personal haven, Aurelio. You've got all the black candles set up. You've shed your blood at the height of the ritual. The shadows seem to grow darker and take on a kind of strange, almost viscous, like liquid-like consistency. And you hear a bubbling, whispering voice emerging out of a patch of particularly deep darkness, saying, "Who summons us? Who calls?"
Alrighty then. Let me very quickly revise my other ceremony that is sort of dovetailing directly onto the end of the other one. Yeah.
Would that be compel spirit by any chance?
That's the one that I'm looking at here. Yeah.
So you make an oblivion ceremony roll versus the race resolve plus composure. So I'm just going to pull up its stats, for I do have them here. Just give me a moment. Okay, wits.
All right.
Okay, so its wits plus resolve is 5. Sorry, resolve composure, isn't it?
Sorry, I'll go resolve composure. Yeah. Or willpower if it doesn't have those stats, but
It definitely does have those stats.
yeah. So
So resolve
yeah,
2,
we'll make
composure
an
2.
opposed roll.
So yeah, so it's rolling
Oh,
4 of the king's
so-
finest dice.
yeah.
I'll put a bookmark in there. Okay, so I will roll 4 for this spectral creature.
For me, it's Oblivion, Resolve. Okay, and then if I click this, it should do my bit. Well then.
Okay. It's a messy critical.
Yeah, that's a 9. That is a very aggressive roll right
Indeed.
there.
So you have completed the task, but as we said previously, there are unfortunate consequences, and I believe page 207 has a list of those consequences. I can't remember them off the top of my head yet.
Yep, same. I need to get my
There we go.
get my PDF.
Messy critical. So you can gain 1 or more stains from your monstrous action. You can breach the masquerade. You can lose a dot from an advantage. Or if none of the above conditions fit, you can just choose to fail the roll, basically.
It'll be stains because of what will follow immediately or in the process of the ritual, because it's kind of a the ritual that I just concluded was, it's the time consuming. I conduct the ritual and then it's a waiting game, but now it's an active thing that we'll get into describing immediately in the aftermath. But I think stains is definitely the
Feel
right
free to drop
option.
a stain on your humanity.
Yep. And then I'll where's my here we go. Gotta get my necromancy tome open there for future reference. Okay, so having then succeeded.
Indeed, and I got 2 successes, so effectively you've got 7 successes over me.
Oh.
So that means you can effectively ask for like 7 tasks or like truthful answers from this. This
and it is a critical as well. So
yeah, you can demand
it
any
try
action.
its best.
Yeah, it doesn't even, because normally, obviously, as we're now looking at the
Yeah.
rules for this, it's like moderate things that it could do without
Yeah.
inconvenience in itself. But with a critical, you can literally ask it anything, and it will do its best to achieve and carry out whatever.
All right, so the voice and I think we were talking about dropping temperature as well, which does go with the general idea of reaching across the shroud. So Aurelio, having used the ritual dagger to pierce his skin and bleed on the statue that serves as a fetter for this spirit, grasps the statue and using the ritual dagger flips it into an ice pick grip and just positions it over the statue and very sternly incants with, or at least if I didn't mention it before, so he's medium for basically all the dark arts is Latin. So he incants in Latin a very strongly worded command into the air, not presuming necessarily that the spirit will understand, but the spirit will understand the magic. And the threat, which he switches to Italian for, and having uttered the words of command in the magical format in Latin, just brings the dagger very close to the statue, and switching to Italian says, "You serve me now, and I will not destroy the shackle that yet gives you existence.
The slowly continuing to solidifying shadow oozes its way off the wall to which it was attached with a wet tearing sound like a piece of ripe fruit being torn in half, and it resolved itself into a very tall, thin-limbed figure, entirely black and featureless, with a sort of liquid look to it, as though it was made out of tar or oil, but an oil that doesn't seem to refract the light in the typical rainbow colours on the surface. Instead, it seems to absorb light into it as though it was a black hole of sorts, or a void. As it moves forward, it has a long beak-shaped face that is little more than a black blob with a long protuberance that puts you in mind of a large monstrous crow, or perhaps the plague doctors of yore. Its limbs appear rather like in the sort of Slender Man style. Its limbs appear far too long for it, and it lends it like a tall sort of shadow puppet look to this figure. It moves forwards and seems to briefly incline its face, for want of a better term, in your direction. And again, this whispered voice that doesn't seem to come directly from its mouth, it just seems to bubble up from somewhere deep inside this spectral creature, says, "Yes, I will serve you. For now."
Speak your name, spirit.
He says, "We are those who were taken too soon by God."
It's actually probably looking very, very strange, because if it absorbs all the light that, well, admittedly, there is not a lot because it's just my ritual candles, but it's literally a black space,
Yeah.
because there's no definition outside of like the 2D when it moves.
Yeah, and it's rather like, the pictures of black holes you see, where you're not actually seeing the black hole, you're just sort of seeing the absence of all the light that's around it. It's very much like that.
Yeah. When did God send you into the shadow?
We were pulled down below the streets in the year of our Lord 1575.
Let's see if my notes were saved, because I was having a bit of trouble saving input on my sheet last time for whatever reason. Maybe I was doing it wrong, but because I definitely think I made a note about the thing that I was supposed to.
Well, if it's something I can refresh you on, I'm quite happy
Here we
to.
go. No, here we go. Okay, it did save. So yeah. Are you familiar with Andrea Palladio
The architect.
of Venice? Yes.
Of course. Even as many of us lay dying, he was already planning his great work of rebuilding.
Did you participate in the great work?
No, we were already taken by then. Taken down below. Where all the dead of Venice go.
Is your grave in the water below the city?
My grave, I do not know. But we are all below the city, for that is where the dead walk.
I think last time, because I cannot control when the spirit shows up, John. I think last time we established that it was basically taking up until the dawn.
It took an hour. I would say you've probably got maybe half an hour before you
Hmm.
you start getting
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm getting tired now. I really need to
Yeah, because I I was about to ask, like, just let me know when I start
yeah,
falling asleep.
yeah, no problems.
So let's see. Do you know of Palladio's work? What was your profession in life?
We did many things. We knew of his work.
Well,
The great construction began almost before the plague had finished.
so there's probably going to be a moment of silence because Aurelio is starting to actually like starting to piece together what's going on with the spirit here, um, and is maybe a little bit surprised that it actually worked out so well. Um, and when he does speak, um, is Palladio a part of you?
No,
Then, spirit, I have a task for you during the following hours under the sun before I rise again at sundown.
your summons allows me to walk in the world above. What is your task?
Find me Palladio,
And what
or
if he does
else
not
where
live?
his spirit has traveled.
Very well.
I will return here at sundown.
Very well. And the spirit starts fading back into the shadows, seeming to sink into the natural shadows against the wall as as it sort of disappears and you feel its sort of presence leave yours, you you start to feel the sort of exertion of the ceremony, the sort of the battle of wills you've done, and it takes you a few moments before you realise as well that obviously it's starting to get pretty early, and that tiredness is just ramping up the exhaustion you're already feeling.
Um, if I may ask, because apparently the icons are not showing up for me in Foundry on that roll. I just need to know, are any what was the condition here again? Looking for my maybe additional stains from using my Oblivion. Um, where is it? Oblivion ceremonies. Here we go. Um, because it depends on the exact results. Um, yeah. Well, we have the icons, but the wording is either a 1 or a 10. And I think I saw when the dice 3D graphics were on there, I think there were a couple of critical things, and it is a critical,
There's
so
definitely a couple of tens
yeah,
in there.
yeah, there's tens in there. So
Yeah,
I'll just mark off another stain, John.
indeed.
Do the exert I think in the aftermath, as the exhaustion of the ritual starts beating down on Aurelio, on top of the fact that he anticipates instinctively the advent of the sun. There's uh, some object casts a shadow across his face as he's um, sat there before putting the ritual accoutrement away to lay down for the day.
And the most disturbing thing is, as you lay down to sleep for the day, the last thing that randomly, often as you do sometimes when you start to go to sleep, random thoughts, even in the undead, bubble to the surface as the consciousness fades and sleep begins. And as you begin to sleep, the last thing that flickers across your mind is the conversation you had with your favourite poor boatman Alfonso Salvati, and your promise to visit his sick daughter tomorrow evening to give her communion, and then your consciousness is snuffed out like a candle and you begin to sleep through the day. You alright, Rob?
Yeah, not too bad. Sorry I'm late.
No problem at all. I've just posted the Foundry link in there again for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we've literally just played out to the scene with Johannes talking to the spirit he summoned at the end.
Excellent.
That's pretty much all you've missed so far. And then what we're going to do is we're going to move into the next day. So we are now going to be on the 3rd of January 2012. So what I'm going to ask you guys to do, unsurprisingly, is to make a rouse roll. And obviously if you fail, your hunger goes up by 1. If anyone starts getting around the 4 or above mark, obviously let me know, because that's when it starts becoming a problem.
Just 2 for the moment.
Okay.
I've got loads. I have. Does a cross count? Are we calling that 1, the cross, or
Let's have a look.
got a cross in the first circle? Or I have.
Oh no, that's if you click on that, it clears your whole hunger track. That's all that is. It's not.
All right. Well, I'm on 4 then.
Okay. Right.
Could you roll for me, John, while I try and find my username and password?
No problem at all. So let's make a rouse roll for you, go. Okay, so you are fine, you go. Your hunger stays as it is at 3. Getting some feedback from somewhere. Is that me or is it someone?
I'm also hearing it.
Oh no, it's Rob.
Yeah, it's Rob.
Sorry about that.
Sorry, mate. Okay, so let me just check the old rouse roll, see if we're going to have problems with anyone. Cause I see some of you getting a little bit on the high side of that blood life. And obviously, as we know from previous, that can be a little bit problematic. Bum, bum, bum.
Oh yeah, I'm at 4
Okay.
after the 2 rituals and waking up.
You 2 again.
Hmm?
This is going to become like the rituals that every time everybody wakes up, Franco and Aurelio are going to be hungry.
Yeah.
It's starting to look that way, isn't it? For saying Sonia's the sort of bloodthirsty mobster, like, everyone else wakes up and they're like,
That's it, mate. She just goes and does yoga.
okay. So, anyone with a hunger of 3 or more is going to be feeling extremely peckish when they wake up. So, as night falls, and in fact, before we get to what's Franco on for his hunger at the minute?
He's on 4 now. He was on 3.
Okay. So, I'm going to say you wake up pretty early in the evening, Franco. It's obviously dark, but it's literally just gone dark, so it's like 7:30, 8 o'clock. And you wake up and you feel almost hear or feel like a sort of scratching sensation. At first you think it's your parched throat as you can feel the hunger once again clawing at the inside of you, and then still feeling quite sluggish because, like I say, it's only just gone dark and the last tendrils of the sun are just sort of retreating over the horizon outside. And in fact, it's only due to the hunger gnawing at you that you've probably woke up so early. You hear from, well, how did we decide that you slept in the Haven? I can't remember.
Oh, I'm in the attic in a traditional style sort of coffin.
Okay, yeah. So you sort of open your eyes and your eyelids feel heavy. It's a struggle to open them. It's like I say, it's only really the hunger that's sort of pushing you on. You suddenly become aware of this scrabbling, sort of scratching noise isn't the normal sounds of the pitter patter of the vermin that are ever present in Venice due to the damp conditions, nor the creaking of the timbers in the attic in which you rest. But this sort of scratching noise appears to be coming from somewhere not directly adjacent to, but from somewhere nearby to where you're sleeping. And it sounds a bit sort of, well, a bit like this. What do you do?
So I don't think it's in the building though.
Difficult to tell at the moment while you're still in the coffin, because obviously like, it's a bit echoey.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'll obviously lift the lid and investigate the noise. But
you sort of heave the lid out, and there's like a small circular window in the loft where you sleep, and obviously it's got heavy drapes over it, and there's probably a cupboard pushed up against it to make sure it's proof against the light. But as you're sort of looking around and you're gradually, slowly starting to wake up a bit more as like, the sunlight's disappearing, you can hear that the scratching sound appears to be coming from somewhere like just outside of the window, or like in the street outside the window in the building, I should say. But it's pretty close. I mean, wherever it's coming from must be literally like right next to like the building that you're in, your group haven.
Okay, well I'll move up to the window and try and discreetly sort of just peek from behind the curtain. See
Okay.
if I can see anything.
You move like the set drawers out of the way and you peep out, and in the moonlight that's shining down, I mean it's a waxing moon. It's not quite full, but it still sheds plenty of light, and it's reflected by the rippling waters of Venice. As you look down, you can see, stood by one of the doors to your group haven, is what looks to be a man wearing a sort of threadbare, shabby, stained coat. He's got a wide brimmed hat on, as a lot of people wear in Venice, so you can't really see his face. You can see like the brim of the hat, and he appears to be like right next to the door, and he's like fiddling with it, and you can hear like this scratching is obviously whatever he's trying to do to the door, and you can see him sort of like moving his hands and his shoulders a little bit.
So he's trying to get in through the door. Is that what it looks like?
Certainly looks like it.
Okay. How big's the window? Is it?
I would say
Climb out through the window.
the window's probably sort of that size by that size. It's one of those little round sort of attic windows. Now, if you, because they're not really meant to like open fully, I would say you probably could get out of it, but like you'd literally be like going through the glass. So you couldn't, because they normally only open like with a little like quarter of them, just to let a bit of air in. So you could fit through it physically, but obviously you'd have to literally like your way through the glass.
Oh no, I won't do that. I'll head back into, or out of the attic into the main building and
Okay.
see if anyone else is about and go and investigate.
So at this point, sort of as you see that and as you start moving, I'm gonna ask, can you please make me a Dex stealth roll? And this is just to see like if the guy hears you like moving about, because obviously you've heard him. So
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm going to make a roll for his perception. Okay. He hears something, but you've drawn back. So as he hears something and he looks up, you catch a brief because you've got the same number of successes, but you're a massively stealthy predator. However, it is a possible bestial failure. So I'm just going to check that. So I'm just checking out a bestial failure. So what I'm going to say is that you've caught a glimpse of his face, but he's not seen you. Well, unless we decide that that's the consequence of the bestial failure. Okay, so not enough successes to breach the difficulty. Okay, so because you've succeeded, it doesn't count as a bestial failure. So you've caught sight of this guy. As he looks up, you briefly see this sort of haggard, sort of time-worn face, straggly beard, like lank hair, looks every inch a vagrant. However, as he sort of inclines his head up, one thing you notice about him, and probably the reason why he's not seen you, is that he appears to be entirely blind. The moonlight catching the pure sort of like milky white opacity of the orbs in his face, his eyes, as though clouded with cataracts or something similar. But you quickly retreat, and he doesn't see or hear, or it wouldn't be able to identify you in any way. He's just like, oh, I've heard a noise, and instinctively looked up. So you start making your way back into the group haven. Now, obviously, we know that Aurelio is not there because he's at his personal haven. Now, Hugo and Sonia will be waking up. So what I'm going to ask is, Hugo and Sonia, can you both roll me a d10? And it's basically going to be whoever gets the highest roll is the first person awake. Okay, so Franco, as you start making your way through the group haven, Hugo, you are waking up at this time, but Franco's just run into Sonia first. Sonia, you're probably up doing your like early evening calisthenics / combat practice, and you hear a very gentle, because we know that Franco's quite a discreet fellow, you hear probably just a very gentle trace of a creak on the wooden stairs of the building, and you see the sort of like lank, greasy haired form of Franco shuffling down the stairs. And Franco, you see Sonia doing her sort of early evening routine, which you know because you've seen it before. It's basically a series of sort of combat stances with a bit of sort of yoga and stuff like that thrown in, so that if anyone sort of stormed in, you could bluff it off and say, oh yeah, I'm just doing my keep fit. But obviously you know it serves a perhaps more sinister purpose. But yeah, you see something.
Yeah, and I shall, fairly quietly, stealthily sort of walk up to close enough that I can sort of whisper. And I just say, we seem to have a guest outside the front door.
Postman?
No, a blind, well, I would describe him more of a beggar, maybe. Rough clothing.
Give him some money, tell him to go away.
Well, do we share this haven with others?
No, it's ours.
It's just your coteries. Obviously, you know that there are the two coteries, the Artist del Destino, Camarilla coterie, and the Tourist Anok coterie, who are sort of in the same area as you guys, in like Castello, but
not the same.
All vampires being predators. Outside their sort of immediate circle, they tend not to want to get too close to each other because, you know, too many vampires in one place. too many people turning up like mysteriously drained of blood as a survival tactic, it doesn't really work.
Yeah.
Franco, why don't you hide and I'll go and answer the door?
And in fact, as you're saying that, you go, that is when you woke up and you walk into the room just as Sonia's saying, look, Franco, why don't you go and hide and I'll answer the door.
Who's at the door?
A blind man.
Ah,
Thought it'd be I seem to be getting hungry these days, and I wondered if it might be useful to have a more permanent visitor to our haven.
Okay, well, you go and discuss that and I'll go and answer the door.
Yeah, what I was thinking of our guest could be that visitor, like on tap, shall we say?
A herd.
Call it what you like. Hunger is
Well, it'd be a herd, wouldn't it? If you're going to shelter them and feed them and then feed from them, it's a herd.
of one.
Yeah, I shall gently remove myself from the room and just go and answer the door.
Okay, that is absolutely fine. You head over towards the door, and I'm assuming you've got one of those little like portal things. You have a quick look through it, and you can indeed see this roomy-eyed, blind, vagrant-looking fellow, wide-brimmed hat, stained, dirty overcoat. Looks like he's all dishevelled and sort of threadbare, and he's basically sort of jiggling like the door handle a bit, and that's the noise that Franco heard.
Okay, I'll open the door.
Okay.
Give him the usual greeting, you know.
Okay, you open the door. Make me a Dex Wits roll.
Is that Dex or Wits?
Well, I suppose technically it should be a skill. I'm falling a bit back into my old ways there. So I suppose really it should probably be something more like Dex Athletics would be more appropriate. But I would say you could use Wits Athletics. Like I said, whenever I throw out these rolls, that's just a sort of example. If you think like something else might be more appropriate, shout it out. Worst I'm going to say is no.
Success.
Okay, so as you open the door, this blind old man tries to make a grab for you. He's a blind old vagrant man. You just like easily like backstep, and it's not a thing. He maybe like with his fingertips like brushes your sleeve, but he sort of carries on like flailing around, sort of stepping in as though he's trying to grab hold of you. You're easily avoiding it. He's not getting within a country mile of you. But the weirdest thing is, as he's sort of still flailing like this, trying to ineffectively grab hold of you, even though he's blind, he's sort of like almost like looking around you into the building beyond. He shouts very loudly, loud enough certainly for Franco and Hugo to hear in the adjoining room. He's like, I'll stop her, my lord! Quickly, run! Save yourself! And he carries on trying to like sort of flail to try and grab hold of you, but you're just like so easily avoiding it, just like batting his hands away like, what is this?
Yeah, Franco, I think it's for you.
Is it? Okay.
The old man carries on shouting at the top of his voice. He's like,
down.
quickly, run, my lord! I'll restrain them!
I come to see if I recognise this fella.
He looks like a vagrant, but as far as you're aware, you've never seen him before in your life. Are you coming down as well, Hugo? What are you doing as this bizarre
I'm
scene
coming down as well.
Okay, so yeah, you see this old man like flailing, trying to almost pitifully, like how sort of like bad a job of he's doing, trying to like grab hold of Sonia, who's looking a bit confused and just sort of like stepping backwards and being like, what the hell's going on here? Like, oh, Franco, you might want to deal with this. And Franco's looking a bit puzzled as well, because obviously he doesn't recognise the old fella. But this old guy's like, quickly, my lord, I'll restrain her. Quickly, make good your escape, my lord.
I'm going to stick my head out the door, because obviously he's making a lot of noise in a fairly tightly packed space.
Indeed.
And I'm going to look for coppers, basically.
Okay. Aurelio, can you please roll me a d10? As the random finger of fate to see if there is a policeman about. There is a policeman just down the street, actually. And as you're sort of peering out the door, and this fellow's like, restrain my lord, run! And like getting nowhere near you. You see like the policeman's just sort of like started to turn his head a bit and sort of look down the road, as he's obviously like just heard a bit of the shouting, and he's like, oh yeah, what's going on there?
Thankfully, because I'm small and beautiful,
True.
I don't look like much of a threat, so I'm going to actually beckon the policeman over.
Yeah, he sees a young woman sort of hailing him over. The policeman starts jogging down. I mean, he's like right at the end of like a fairly long street. So it's going to take him like a couple of rounds, effectively, like a couple of minutes.
Fine.
But he starts like jogging towards you. You can see him. He like raises a like a whistle to his lips, and he starts like blowing a high pitched note on his whistle, as he's obviously trying to summon all the members of the civilian police force as he runs down the street towards you. Okay, so while that's going on, Franco and Hugo, what are you doing? This old man's still like, obviously he doesn't really know where Sonia's gone because he's blind, but he's still like flailing around in the same place, going like, I'll restrain the devil, my lord. Quickly, make good your escape.
I'll just say, I think you've got the wrong house. Who are you looking for?
At which point he turns around, looks like straight at you, but like I say, his eyes are all like milky and cloudy with cataracts, and then he sniffs slightly, and he reaches out, not in a sort of I'm going to grab you way, almost in a sort of like, I suppose, trying to be comforting way, really. He sort of reaches out, sort of puts a hat like a quavering hand, and you can tell there's like not much strength in it, and he puts it on your arm, and he says quickly, my lord, I've got to get you out of here.
I don't know who you are, what you want.
He says, I've sent by the others, my lord, to get you to a place of safety. Quickly, you're not safe here. Beware lest the devil kindred steal you back away, my lord. I'm here to free you from your imprisonment.
I think you have.
And he's gently trying to like pull your arm, but he's like a weak old like vagrant man. So like you're just like,
yeah.
Oh no, don't pull me, please.
Yeah, I think you have me confused for someone else.
He says, no. He says, my masters were most clear. A member of their brotherhood was being held here by the devil kindred, and I was to come here and to see that they were set free. I don't make a mistake. Come, my lord, we must go. And he's still like, quite pitifully like tugging at your arm, but he doesn't really have any strength to him. And now he's close to you, can smell sort of like horrible, sort of like boozy, like bile, like smell coming from him. So, as though he's sort of like he's drank too much and then been sick a couple of times, and he's like trying to like pull your arm, but like I said, there's no strength to him.
Well, I don't want to be in the scene when this policeman arrives. So I'm going to back off into the sort of shadows of the room a bit more. Outside.
Okay. As you back off, obviously the fellow who's like holding your arm goes with you, and he's still, you're sort of dragging him, but he's trying to like drag you. So like, quickly, my lord, we must away from this devilish place. But
yeah, I'll just push you back. Yeah.
You easily push him, and he like falls backwards onto the floor. At which point the policeman has sort of reached the doorstep where he was, Sonia, and he says, "Is there any problem, miss?"
This poor confused man came in and tried to attack me.
He looks round you into the room, and he sort of like he sees this vague. You see his nose like wrinkling, disdays us. Obviously, he catches a waft of the man's foul smell, and he takes a couple of steps into the room, sort of putting himself in between you and this guy, and he sort of like nudges the old fellow with his foot, and he says, "Is this true?" At which point the old man, with actually quite a surprising amount of like athleticism, like leaps to his feet, headbutts this policeman, who sort of reels back, surprised, like holding his nose, which is pouring with blood, as like, because he wasn't expecting this old vagrant to sort of like leap to his feet, and like he sort of falls backwards, holding his nose a bit, more in shock than anything else. At which point the old fellow like starts making a break for the door, and like I said, with surprising like speed, he starts like running out of the door. The policeman like takes a few moments to get himself together, and he starts running after him, like shouting after him, the old man, to like surrender, and like shouting that he's assaulted a police officer. And the two of them sort of disappear down the street. The old man running up ahead, like I say, surprisingly quickly, and the policeman in hot pursuit. And then they disappear around the corner.
Well, we can expect them back at some point.
Very strange.
I think your visitor might come back as well, Franco.
I don't know what to make of it. Other than he seemed quite drunk.
Well, we'll let the police chase that and get the report later.
Okay, as those two are talking, Hugo, can you please make me a wits awareness roll?
Three successes.
And that is more than enough successes to succeed, so it doesn't count as a bestial failure. As these two are having this discussion, you've sort of, as someone who's been in, shall we say, a fair few spicy scenarios in your own life, to put it mildly, one of the things that you've learnt is, even when it looks like the danger's past, you need to keep an eye on your surroundings to make sure that everything's as it should be. So you're sort of taking in the scene, sort of watching down the street and checking both ways and looking around while Franco and Sonia are having this discussion, and your eye happens to fall on the spot where the old vagrant man was standing when he was fiddling around with the door, and you notice that exactly where he was standing there is what looks to be a pool of water, just by only about that wide, but a small pool of water by the doorstep to your building.
Okay, and if I kneel down and smell it, does it smell?
It smells like canal water.
Okay.
Which is a scent that most citizens of the city would be very familiar with.
Okay, and is it like a dry night?
Yes, it's not raining.
Okay.
I mean, there is a little bit of sort of dew from the cold to heat transfer of day passing into night, but nothing that would leave a big puddle.
Okay, and is there like footprints leading up to the puddle?
There's not footprints leading up to the puddle. No, it's just like a puddle, as though as the guy was standing there fiddling with the door, this water just seemed to sort of like collect around him.
Okay. Is that a supernatural skill or phenomenon that I might be aware of or familiar with?
You're not familiar with any sort of supernaturals that make it a practice to like conjure canal water from anywhere now.
Okay.
Okay, so while you're having a think about that, Aurelio, what are you up to?
I presume
you've woken up in your personal haven.
I presume the spirit is not present, or is it?
It's not present at first, but about half an hour after you awaken, obviously you're tidying up all your shiz and you're getting all your stuff squared away before you set out for the evening. You notice the temperature begins to dip, and again you see this sort of darkened patch of shadow that soon resolves itself into this tall, gangly, oily, shadowy figure. And as it emerges, it says, "The architect is buried on the island San Michel in a mausoleum. His spirit does not linger in the city below."
Right. Well, in that case, it has fulfilled its part in our arrangement here. So yeah, the spell does no longer hold him, or it rather, or them, because we're getting a Legion vibe here.
Indeed,
So,
don't forget you have the ability to command it to perform a number of tasks, and until
yeah.
all of those are done, it's in your service. So I believe you got 6, was it? So you asked it to tell you, like, to tell you the truth about some of your questions.
For successes, I got 9.
Yeah, minus its successes.
Yeah, and I forget what it got, but yeah. I think we were talking about 7.
Yes,
So,
7, that's right, yep.
yeah, so 6 now. So so it was saying that Palladio's spirit is not around or accessible.
It said that the architect's spirit did not linger in the city below.
Yeah. Well, the unfortunate thing for this spirit is that my ritual is powerful enough that it will serve until the end of the chronicle or until it has fulfilled the commands, at which
Indeed.
point it can return. So one of my 6 is going to be guard this haven,
Okay.
which will last for a bit.
Yeah, it again, it sort of inclines what passes for its face, and it seems to melt back into the shadows. But as you look around your small personal haven, the sort of oily, sort of semi-liquid look of this spectral figure seems to cling to all the shadows now cast in your room, as though it's like joined with the existing shadows in your building.
And as I get my stuff together, I'll just say that I will be returning with hopefully the next steps. Don't leave the premises. And I will instead lead the premises to...
Yeah, and as you step out, you hear, seemingly coming from like everywhere inside the room, you hear a whispered voice saying, "We will be here."
I will have to go and attempt to procure some sustenance now. And because I don't have a Tupperware container to save my hunger right now,
Indeed.
we're going to have to do it live, as they say. So where's my custom rows that I set up? Oh, it's here, isn't it? Yeah. So
So, what method are you using to hunt?
yeah, because I don't have a ready access to a corpse right now. I guess I would have to go to San Michel to at least to dig up like fresh ones that might be there. Do we know where the hospital might be, or a hospital?
Yeah, you could locate a hospital in Castello. That's not a problem.
Yeah. So, or like a clinic or something.
Yeah,
Where
it's
they
it's
might
more
have.
likely to be a small general hospital because
Mm.
there's not sort of the big sort of special. In fact, the only reason it's got so many sort of general hospitals as such is purely because of like the massive tourist trade.
Because I need this. This is the thing, right? Because my preferred method is to well feast on the dead, and uh, rules as written, I've got two things that it gives for methods of hunting. One is corpse, and the other is from mourners, because that's kind of the living sustenance that I can go for as well.
Yeah,
And going for corpses, um, resolve and medicine is like thematically, it's more about harvesting the thing from the corpse,
yeah.
but that's already presuming you have a corpse to harvest. So I suppose, like, do we want to address that bit at all, or the access part, or?
Yeah, okay, so what I'm going to say is in order to successfully locate and sort of infiltrate a hospital,
Mhm.
we'll do it all in one roll. Make me an intelligence plus streetwise roll. And this is partly to locate it, but also partly to like get yourself in there, basically.
Right. Um,
Obviously, feel free to suggest alternatives.
because the mourner bit is really unfortunate for Hecata such as I. It's not really like I just take a brief sip here, no worries, because my bite is not conducive to that. Um, well, I'll tell you what. Recognizing that Aurelio like would vastly prefer to go to San Michel and dig up a corpse rather than try and like sneak into a hospital without like prior arrangements. Um, we're instead going to oh boy, we're going to put a pin in that, and we're going to go and do our little visit to uh, Alfonso's place.
Okay, no problem. So you head to the the sort of the poorer areas of San Paulo, where you know that your your touchstone, this person who means a fair amount to you, Alfonso Salvati, this poor boatman, works ferrying people from between Dosadoro and Giudecca across the strait down here, you know, where he lives with his poor daughter, Cara. He's a single father. The mother's been deceased for a few years. And you kindly, in your guise as a priest, volunteered to go and give communion to his daughter because she's not been able to get to church. So you make your way through the streets, you know where he lives, and eventually you find this small sort of ramshackle, poorly repaired wooden building which isn't doing terribly well due to like the ever-present damp in the streets of Venice. It doesn't look like it's been taken very good care of, like the paint and the plasterwork sort of peeling off, and you can see the door, such as it is, it's a wooden door, and it looks like a sturdy kick from even the most barely physically capable person could like take the door off its rusted hinges.
So I'll give it a rap.
Okay, you're knocking in. After a while, you hear sort of shuffling footsteps on the other side of the door. The door opens a crack, and you see like the face of Alfonso, and then obviously he sees you, and seeing it's you, he throws open the door. He looks quite pale, as though he's not slept for a while, or probably due to worry. But when he sees you, he embraces you, and he says, "Oh, Father, it's so good of you to come. Please, I've prepared some bread, cheese, and wine for when you stopped by. It's not much, but it's the best I could offer." And as he says that, from upstairs, for like all the buildings here, it's built tall rather than wide, you hear a sort of a hacking cough echoing down the stairs. You see briefly Alfonso's eyes flicker towards the stairway, and again this look of worry mingled with dread flashes across his face, but he's obviously trying to put a brave face on it. And he says, please, Father, don't say that you'll catch your death on this cold night. Please come in.
I fear I'm before the cold could get me. I'm feeling not that well this evening. I fear, Alfonso, and there are still matters I need to go tend to. So you'll excuse my haggard appearance. I haven't put on the blush, John.
No,
I can't afford this.
I understand. I understand. Now, luckily for you, he does look a bit concerned about you as well. But again, like, he seems to be assuming that, like, oh, it's the cold, and like a lot of people seem to think about priests. They're like, oh, you lead that sort of strange monastic lifestyle. It means you're not really like prepared for the real world. You sort of keep yourself separate from normal people, that sort of thing. But he's like quickly coming, and he ushers you into like this small sort of a lounge, I suppose you could call it. There's a little table there. There's a slightly stale looking loaf of like crusty bread, a bit of hard cheese, and what looks to be half a bottle of some sort of vinegar that's trying to masquerade as wine. And there's a couple of like chipped cups on the table. He picks up a fairly blunt looking sort of bread knife, and he starts like slicing a bit of this crusty bread off, and he's like, oh no, please Father, it's the least I can do. You're looking like you're barely holding yourself together, he says, and he's like starts like slicing.
I will say, Alfonso, I will take the plate if you offer it to me, but I will carry it up to your daughter, who needs it more than I do.
Okay, can you roll me a d10?
As soon as my mouse gets... Okay, here we go. D10. 4.
Okay, so he's slicing this bread. However, as you sort of like mention his daughter, again, there's a cough upstairs, and he seems to start a bit. And as he does so, he accidentally like draws the knife across the area on his hand between his thumb and his finger, and you smell fresh spilled blood as it sort of dribbles down his arm, and he lets out an involuntary curse and sort of like shakes his hand a little bit. And we are going to, since you're so incredibly hungry, we are going to have a roll to see whether this sets you off. Obviously, normally it wouldn't, but given your level of hunger, I'm just seeing if it's on my sheet. Hunger frenzy, here we go. So, difficulty to resist, the sight of an open wound or overpowering smell of blood while at hunger, 4+. So, let me just see if so you need to roll your willpower plus 1/3 of your humanity, rounded down.
Okay, one third, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, so 2 for me because I'm at 6. So I'm gonna click this. Okay, so that was just the willpower then.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll do.
Well, it's fine. You only needed 2 successes, and you've already got that off your.
Yeah, but in case I messed it up,
That's fine.
So I'll just do 2 d10s and We'll translate. Okay, so just a success and an empty. So.
Okay, so with that, you do for a brief moment feel yourself sort of like drawing closer to him, as obviously the hunger starts to sort of overtake you a bit, and you can feel like your fangs sort of start to slide a little bit out of your gums inside your mouth, but you quickly sort of clamp down on that feeling with your own willpower, and you feel them retract back into your gums as you sort of like draw back a bit. You can see that in that time when you were sort of like battling with yourself, that your poor boatman friend has basically like grabbed like a dirty like tea towel, and he's like wrapped it round his hand, and he's sort of like tied it off, and he says, "Oh, I was terribly sorry, Father. Terribly sorry. I was distracted. My poor Cara," and he sort of looks towards the stairs. Says, I suppose I shouldn't keep you with my foolishness." And he looks down at the bread that's like blood soaked into it, and he just sort of like pushes it away to the far end of the table, and then he says, "Well, I suppose I could still take her some of this cheese."
Alfonso, please have a seat. I will tend to your daughter and be on my way, so as not to keep from my affairs and be a burden on your own. And I'll get from my like my little like leather briefcase that I have my sort of carry around stuff in. I'll take a small bottle of communion wine. So I'll show him that, and then get the bread as well, the communion wafer. I'll like show them to him. It's like, I shall go visit your daughter, give her communion, and be out of here before you'll know it.
He nods. He says, "Yes, of course, Father. I'm so very grateful. Thank you again."
I'll very swiftly, because I want to avoid being next to Alfonso right now, very swiftly make my way upstairs to locate Kara.
Okay, you start making your way up the stairs. Now, can you make me a wits plus awareness roll? Okay, you find that's enough successes. So as you get to the landing, I suppose, just about to the little hallway that leads to the room where it's been indicated that Cara sleeps. There's only a couple of rooms in this. You expect that Alfonso sort of sleeps down in the lounge area, probably just on the like crappy chair that's in there. As you get onto the landing, you hear the voice of a very sickly sounding young woman from just beyond another ramshackle wooden door, and she says, "Oh yes, I know, but it hurts so much." And then you hear another female voice, one that you don't recognise, say, I know my daughter, but all such things eventually pass."
I'll clear my throat in the hallway or outside the room.
Okay, as you clear your throat, you hear a third female voice from inside the room, although this one sounds sort of cracked and weighed down with age, say, "I heard something outside."
I'll push the no doubt creaky door in. Or
oddly, the door doesn't seem to creak, which surprises you because like the hinges are like rusted all to heck, and it's this old wooden door, but it doesn't seem to make a sound as you push it open. As you enter the room, you see Cara, this young, very ill-looking woman, like say in a sort of like mid-teens. She's in what barely passes for a bed, with all the blankets her father could scrape together drawn up around her. You can see there's a a few sort of like speckles, like what looks to be like dried blood, as though she's been like coughing into a handkerchief, and she's got the covers sort of like tightly pulled up around her. And then standing on either side of the bed are two women that you don't particularly recognise. One appears to be a young woman with blonde hair. She's wearing a fairly simple, plain white dress. And on the other side of the bed is a hunched, elderly, I suppose, crone, you could call her, wearing, I mean, you're probably very familiar with this, wearing what almost looks like a tattered burial shroud. And there is a polished mask of obsidian on her face, which has been carved to resemble like the stereotypical like fairy tale old woman with the crooked nose, wart and all.
Yeah, witch mask.
Yeah, basically, yeah. And they both sort of look up as you enter the room.
So, for several reasons, Aurelio is going to attune his finer senses and try to sense the unseen.
Okay,
At
not a
this
problem.
point.
So that is a
So-
free power, and you can either use your wits plus auspex or your resolve plus auspex.
Yep, and I think it's this. Yep, and then there we go. Two successes, and if it's a failure, it's going to be a bestial failure.
Okay, it's not a failure because they're not actually trying to hide themselves overly much. Yes, they are both supernatural creatures, unsurprisingly. I'm just checking if it's... I'm going to say, given the clues, you can pretty much tell that these two are vampires. And in fact, you're pretty sure, given that one of them was wearing an obsidian mask, you probably could make an astute guess as to what clan one of them's from.
Yeah, I think the number one thing kind of for Aurelio is like, are they physical or not? Because that changes the approach.
They are physically there. They're not like
Yeah.
spirits or anything. Although, since you've activated your sense unseen, you can sense that there's some sort of effect. You're not exactly sure of its nature, but you think it's like effectively like dampening sound in the room, and that's probably why the door didn't creak when you opened it.
I'll step inside, close the door behind me,
The
and
Cara, obviously recognizing you because you're good friends with her father, she starts to try and sort of like rise herself up out of the bed, but she's too weak, and she gives into like a coughing fit and sort of falls back into the bed. The young blonde haired woman basically like plumps up the pillar behind her and sets it up behind her so she can like lean back against it and against the wall, and just says to her, don't strain yourself, my daughter.
good evening. I have to admit that I did not expect there to be attendance to young Kara here tonight.
At which point the crone, as I'll just keep referring to it to make it easy to identify, says, "Oh yes, we're greatly interested in young Kara here." And she lets out a stereotypical witch's cackle, which you feel the sort of effect on the room causes that the cackle to like not reverberate beyond the bounds of the room.
I feel compelled to inquire as to why
this would be.
The crone looks at you and says, "And what interest do you have here, dearie?"
Presuming that you are not Socrates come back from the dead.
At
to
which point
apply his
the
method.
crone laughs as you say that.
I would ask that we address my question first, as I was indeed first.
The old hag starts to like lift her hand as though she's going to say something. She can't see her face behind the mask, but the blonde-haired woman says, "He is correct. We're here because we're seeking to find a way to end our daughter's pain." And she sort of like taps Cora on the shoulder and at which point she says, "I'm prepared to answer your question, but would you mind awfully if we just stepped away from the bed a little? That there are sensitive matters which are possibly a little too much for her young ears."
Please.
She sort of steps aside with you and turns to the hag and says, "Atropos, would you stay here and care for Cora?" And she says, "Yes, of course I will." And she steps aside with you and says, "We're here to ensure that our daughter does not meet a very painful and unfortunate fate. Atropos has in her divinations established that this," and she genuinely looks quite sorrowful when she says this, "this poor child will not survive out the week, and there will be a great deal of pain before the end. And her pain and her youth denied called out to the two of us, myself and Atropos, who have a similar hole in our lives that pains us, one that we feel she may be more than adequately suited to fill."
So Aurelio takes a bit to piece things together.
Are you implying that you will recruit her, for lack of a better term?
It has been a very long time since there were three of us, and our group does not work well with only the two of us. We are unbalanced, but our last daughter perished some time ago, and we cannot simply grab someone off the streets and induct them in. It has to be someone fresh in the bloom of their innocence, but who has also experienced the dreadful pain that this world can cause. And we feel that in this regard, Cora, as she is now called, is more than qualified. And we will take away the pain which currently racks her poor body. She will be strong again. We will care for her, and she will learn a great deal and see terrible wonders that as yet her young mind cannot even begin to fathom.
What are you doing about the father?
The father is no concern of ours.
You intend to disappear with Kara then?
The father would meet a much more, and she looks like she's struggling for words, would have a much more painful time of it were we to not do so. And she reaches into like the folds of her dress, and she takes out what looks to be a handful of soil, And she says, would you see what we have seen?
I confess to not understanding.
As you say that, she blows a handful of this soil into your face, and the people in the room seem to fade away. You're still in the same building, but you get the feeling that like some time has passed. And as you look into the room that you are still stood in, you see the dead and sickly and emaciated form of Kara lying still and unmoving on the bed. Then from somewhere down below you hear a loud thump. From downstairs.
So, is there any other movement or sound going on at the moment, or was that just the like? There's just being the thump.
Just the thump.
Okay. Presuming I'm able to, I'll breeze downstairs.
Okay, you head downstairs and you hear a creaking noise that lets you know what you're going to see even before you step into the lounge. As you do so, you see the body of your poor boatman friend Alfonso hanging from a knotted rope, the other end of it fastened to a light fixture, and on the floor next to him lies the upended chair.
Is the fixture actually holding?
It appears to be, yes.
I know enough, even though I'm not primarily a physician as such, but I'm familiar enough with medicine that I'll grasp at the chance. So I'll get to him as fast as I can to lift him up.
Okay, you run towards him. You can see that with this noose around his neck, he's slowly strangling to death. However, at the moment you reach him in plenty of time. At the moment your hands would have made contact with his legs to lift him up, you suddenly snap back into the present day, and you're stood in the now occupied room facing the blonde woman. And she says, those are the shadows of what would have occurred were we not to have intervened.
What will happen now then? The result for him is the same.
But he will not have evidence that his daughter is dead. Perhaps he will go mad in the search for her. I don't know. But at least he will have hope, as opposed to being damned by the knowledge that there is absolutely nothing he can do.
Are you taking her this evening?
That was our intent. As I say, we believe she has no more than a week.
Well, be on your way then. I presume you need not my help to cover your exit.
No, we don't.
Then leave.
Okay, at which point she walks back over to the bed. You see her and the crone help the weak young woman Kara up from the bed, and they start leading her towards a window. And Kara sort of, as they get to the window, they open it, and you can see beyond it is just what appears to be a black void rather than the scenery you would expect to see outside. As they get
So I'll sort of softly speak to them all, I suppose, as they go, but specifically following Kara, and say,
God go with you.
She pauses on the threshold of this void and smiles back at you. Then she looks at the blonde woman and says, I'm not going to be able to come back and tell my father about any of this, am I? And the blonde woman says, no, I'm afraid not, but if it brings you comfort, you may look in on him from time to time, and you will have to be satisfied with that. But come now, a future free of pain and of sickness awaits you. And they step into this black void, disappearing into the darkness. The window seems to snap shut behind them, and then after a few moments you notice the stars and scenery outside start sort of fading back in as this blackness retreats, leaving you alone in this room.
so I will. I always have on me a small pouch of salt, for that is a very common thing that my profession.
You don't need to
calls
explain
on.
why you might be carrying some salt with you. It's like if you said, oh, I've got a stick of chalk on me and some candles, I'll be like, yeah.
Sounds like the kind of thing. So I'll get a like basically all the salt that I have on my person. My big bottle is in the briefcase downstairs, but I'll get the pocket salt that I have, and I'll just sprinkle it on the bed, and tuck the covers on the salt,
Okay.
and I'll like get like a pinch of it to go, and I'll head back down to.
Okay. And as you're heading back down, we're going to jump across to the other guys at your communal haven. As you correctly surmised, about 15 minutes later, there's a knock at the door, and it's the quite out of breath policeman. And he looks very confused as well as out of breath when he knocks on the door, and he says, "Oh, hello. I'm sorry to, and I'm going to ask which of you answers the door when he knocks." It's down to the three of you.
Well, it definitely won't be me.
Probably me.
Okay, so you answer the door, and he says, I'm terribly sorry to bother you again, young lady, but I need to. He takes out a small notebook. I need to take a statement about the events that occurred. I'm afraid the wily old or beggar managed to give us the slip. I've never seen an old fellow run like that before. I mean, four of us couldn't chase him down, but we'll take your statement and we'll put his description out. And don't you worry, ma'am, we'll catch him.
Oh, thank you. You better come in and have some coffee.
He looks as though he's about to sort of like politely refuse, but perhaps your beauty or your demeanour wins him over, and he sort of looks at his watch and he says, "Well, I suppose I've got time for a small cup. That's very, very generous of you, ma'am." And he comes inside. Obviously, you go, Franco. You could be around or not as you see fit. You'll certainly hear this conversation going on. The policeman, if you're about, won't think anything of you being about. He'll just be like, "Oh, these are the people who live at the house." He might assume you're this young woman's uncles or elder brothers. It's not uncommon for big families to share a home in Venice. So he'll sort of nod respectfully to any of you, and he sort of sits down if you're going through with making him a coffee, Sonia.
Yeah, definitely.
And he basically starts asking you, what happened. You say this old man tried to attack you.
Yep.
And he's basically just taking down the details of whatever sort of cock and bull story you.
Well, I was going to give him the basics. So I was doing my yoga
Yep.
when I heard a scratching at the door. I informed Franco that somebody was trying to enter the door. Franco suggested that I answer the door, so I did, at which point the man tried to attack me and then, for some bizarre reason, claimed that Franco was a lord, and all sounds a bit crazy to me.
He notes all this down in his notebook, sipping the coffee while he does so. And he says, well, I think I've got all the... he drains his coffee, puts down. I think I've got all the information I need here, miss. As I say, don't worry, we'll have the local precinct put out his description. We'll arrange for a couple of the constables to travel this route past your building for the next week or two, just to make sure he doesn't show his face again. I wouldn't think nothing of it. I mean, we're here to set the public's mind at rest, and that's what we aim to do. But don't worry, miss. We'll catch the fellow as soon as he pokes his ugly head out again. We'll have him, and as I say, he's assaulted a police officer, so he'll be straight to the lockup.
Yeah. Wonderful news, officer.
Well, is there anything else I can do for you, miss? I really should probably be getting back on shift now.
No, thank you, kind sir.
Well, you rest easy, miss. Like I say, think nothing more of it. We'll catch this miscreant as soon as he pokes his head above water. Well,
oh yes, and I will have my uncle Ugo install better security.
That's probably a wise idea, especially with in the next few months. Well, I don't know whether this fellow is a local or not, but in the next couple of months, I'm sure you've seen the flyers for the carnival that's going to take place.
Oh yes, a wonderful party that's going to cause lots of tourism.
Well, yes,
and I will say tourism with a bit of disdain in my voice.
Yeah, he sort of smiles and nods as you say that. He says, "Well, yes, much as it's going to undoubtedly bring a lot of money into the city, it's going to bring a great deal of trouble, and there's sure to be an increase in crime. But as I say, I'd get that security installed if I were you. But I won't keep you any more, miss. But don't worry any more about it. We'll soon have him behind bars. Good evening to all of you."
Thanks, officer.
And he heads out, and you hear him like walking off down the street.
John, can you explain what resonance in the blood is?
Yeah, it's basically if you drink from someone who has like a very strong sort of mood, or is in like certain sort of like highly charged situations, their blood has a distinct like resonance to it. So like if you drink from someone who's just been in like is like an adrenaline junkie in like a high speed car chase, and they've just been in a shootout, and you like drink their blood, you might get a bit of that resonance. You might start feeling a bit like hopped up and a bit like excited. Whereas if you're like your boy Aurelio, and you're sipping blood off like sorrowful, somber mourners, you might start feeling like an echo of that emotion as well. When you drink from them, you'll start feeling a bit of the grief and a bit of the somberness come through.
Okay, so I have a skill that lets me smell resonance.
Yep.
So I'm wondering if I could have tried to smell the resonance of the vagrant when he was in the building. To understand.
Do you know what? I think you probably could. I don't see why not. I'm just gonna look up the odor resonance. And does your skill tell you what roll to make?
Yeah, it's a resolve plus awareness at difficulty 3.
Okay, so make your roll.
So that looks like a success.
Okay, so the way resonance works is it works on the sort of the four humours model. It's like choleric, melancholy, phlegmatic, and sanguine. Now, you're getting when you sniff this person, you're getting a choleric resonance from him, which is it's associated with like adrenaline and sort of excitability, sort of high levels of emotion. and you also are able to determine the sort of strength of a resonance. It can be fleeting, intense, and acute. So with like choleric resonance, basically if it was fleeting, it's like, oh, someone's just had a jump scare in the cinema, but otherwise they're fine. If it's intense, like say it's someone who's just been in a high-speed chase, whereas if it's acute, it's like this person is like a serial adrenaline junkie. They are like, like the sort of parkour people who are always sort of like putting themselves in dangerous situations for the thrill of it. With this, like I say, it's choleric, so there's intense feelings involved. It was the sort of high action, like excitement and worry and fear all wrapped up into one, and it was quite intense. So this guy, when it was literally like, oh my lord, you've got to escape from here, I'll hold them, he was like very excited. He obviously like thought he was doing something like tremendous, and he was fearful as well. He knew that like he might not make it back, but he thought what he was doing was important enough to like risk himself.
Okay. So I'll turn to the other guys. I think we should try and find this vagrant. Because it feels like something is amiss.
Well, he said he'd come from a group or an order or something, so there must be others with similar ideas or, well, faith or whatever it is you want to call it.
Loony.
Or he's just a drunken crazy fool.
Yeah.
Which is also an option.
Well, I think the security people probably a good idea.
Yeah.
As you're discussing this, Hugo, your mobile phone starts to ring.
Oh, okay. So I guess I'll answer it.
Okay, you hear a familiar voice on the other end. It's like, Hugo, is that you? And you recognise the voice of Arnold Caprese.
Ah, Arnold, how are you?
He says, yeah, well, things have been, could be better, could be worse. He says, listen, and I suppose since we go back a ways, you'd be able to do me a favour.
Yeah, what kind of favour?
He's like, listen, I've recently come into possession of some merchandise, if you understand what I'm saying, and I'm going to meet with a buyer soon. Now, I've spoke to the fixer Huberto, and he's supposed to be organising a bit of discreet muscle, just in case things go wrong. But wow, I've not really had that many dealings with Scarpace before, so I'm a little bit wary of relying on him to provide my protection, if you know what I mean. And I thought, well, since I know you're a bit handy, maybe as a favour to me, I mean, obviously I can cut you in some of the readies. Maybe you wouldn't mind accompanying me. I'm not expecting anything to go wrong, but you never know with these sort of things, and just in case it does, I'd quite like to have someone I trust there.
Yeah, I could certainly do you a favour for a percentage. When is the meeting?
He says, look, it's in a couple of hours' time. He says,
okay.
It was all very last minute. The merchandise I've got needs moving pretty quickly. So that's why I couldn't go to my usual fellow. I had to go to Scarpace to set me up with the buyer. But I tell you what, I don't want to discuss it on an open line. What I'll do is I'll text you through the place to meet in the normal manner, and like I said, we can haggle over the percentages and whatnot afterwards.
Yeah. I trust it.
Right, okay. Thanks, Hugo. Much appreciated. How you want to? I'll speak to you soon.
Cool.
And he hangs up the phone.
Okay. So I'll turn back to Franco and Sonia and say, I have to go out to do some business. But first, I'm going to take an hour and try and find this vagrant. If you want to tag along, or else I can just go on my own.
Well, I think Franco better sort out what he did yesterday so he can get that ball rolling. You've got to get your ball rolling. I imagine Aurelio is somewhere rolling his balls.
Okay.
And you are interrupted, Sonia, by your mobile phone ringing.
I shall look at the screen.
Okay, you look at the screen and it says withheld number.
So answer the phone.
Okay, you answer the phone and you hear the familiar voice of Uberto Scarpace on the other end. And he said, how do you answer the phone? And you're like, Sonia? Or you're like, hello?
I'll give it a buongiorno.
Yeah, buongiorno. Okay, so you hear the voice of Uberto on the other end and he's like, Sonia, it's been too long.
Oh, this is going to cost me.
He says, listen, I'm not going to beat around the bush. I need some muscle, but I need muscle that doesn't look like muscle, if you know what I mean. Something discreet.
I've got you.
For a little job of going on. He says, well, when it comes to people who can put the hurt on people without looking like they can, well, your name was the first I thought of.
I'm glad to hear it.
Says, listen, there's this, I've been contacted to set up a meet by this small-time guy, nothing grand, Caprese, Arnold Caprese. He's recently lifted some sculpture from the Guggenheim collection, over in Dussadoro, but it's a little bit hot for him to handle, if you know what I mean. And he's desperate to get rid of the stuff. He's reached out to me to set up a meeting. I've managed to find him a buyer, but he's a bit of a flight risk, he's a bit nervy. So I've promised him that I'll get some discreet muscle there in case anything goes wrong.
Okay, but how warm is it? Are we expecting company?
I'm not really expecting any violence to erupt. It should be a simple exchange, the sculpture for the money. The buyer has done this sort of thing before. I've dealt with him before. I'm not expecting anything to go wrong, but well, in my game, it's the unexpected things you don't prepare for are the ones that get you killed.
Oh yeah.
And he says, listen, yeah. I'm not going to be there myself. I'm just arranging the buy. But I also want someone I trust there to make sure everything goes as it should. And also to let me know if this Caprese tries to stiff me on the deal.
Oh, that's fine. My schedule's clear for the next few hours.
Says, right, it's taking place in 2 hours in San Paulo. I'll text you the address over shortly.
No problem.
We'll usual deal for the percentage, yeah?
Always.
Excellent. It's such a pleasure dealing with professionals and not these small timers looking to get their foot on the ladder. You've set
always wanting more than they've earned.
Isn't that the truth? Well, thanks very much, Sonia. You've set my mind to rest. I'm sure you've done I'm sure your old family, Miss Penner, would be proud of the way you're carrying on with your business.
Thank you. I shall dress casual.
Great. Right. Well, call me on the usual number when when the deal's done. Just let me know it's all gone through. Okay.
Not a problem.
I'll speak to you soon. Take care. And he hangs up.
Well, I'm off out, guys. So, see you later.
Ta-ta for now.
Um, so I'll call my dog, and I guess I'll try and follow the scent of the vagrant for an hour before I go to the meeting.
Okay.
Well, I've got to go out to attend to a first, so I'll accompany you if you're looking for any company.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Hugo, can you make me a wits a, a wits survival roll, and I'm going to give you a 2 dice bonus because you've got the dog not helping you track, basically.
Okay. Sorry. So wits,
Survival.
survival, and the modifier is 2.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll do it.
It's a messy critical, whatever that means.
Okay. Well, as we've seen before, a messy critical is when you succeed, but your beast has sort of tainted the result or caused a complication in some way. I was going to see if that's on my cheat sheet. Otherwise, I'll have to look it up. Doesn't look like it is. Oh no, here we go. Messy critical. Page 207. So, as we said, messy critical, you could gain 1 or more stains. So, how you've gone about this has like affected your humanity potentially. You could breach the masquerade, so you've demonstrated some sort of vampiric style to a mortal or someone not of the blood. You could temporarily lose a dot from an advantage if you can think of a way of working that in, or if you want none of the above, you could simply say it's just a straight failure.
Can you explain the second one to me?
Yep. You breach the masquerade. So the masquerade is
No, sorry, not that one. The lose a dot one. That was I didn't really.
oh yeah,
understand that.
you could lose a dot in advantage. So let's say you've got like resources 3. You could like lose a dot in resources, but obviously you need to work out like how as a result of your sort of bestial action you've lost that resource. So let's say you had a level 1 contact. You might say like, oh, I've displayed like my vampire side to like my contact, and it's like freaked him out. He doesn't want anything to do with me. So you lose that dot of the contact.
Understood. Okay. So I think I'll take the straight up failure.
Okay, not a problem. So you spend quite a while searching around. You've got Franco with you. You've got your dog. You do indeed manage to follow the trail. However, it comes to a dead end at the side of one of the canals. So it's almost like the guy ran up to the canal and just like jumped in. Like the trail literally goes right to the very edge and then stops because it gets to the water.
Okay. Cool. So after that, I will head to the meeting with Arnold.
Okay. So, Franco, obviously you've been with Hugo a while. You've been following this trail. It's got to the water's edge. Franco's going to head off. Hugo's going to head off and go to his meeting. As Hugo heads off, what are you planning to do?
Well, I'm in the situation where I need to find some blood, so I'll be looking for a suitable victim once again.
Okay, and what method are you going to use to locate a victim? Are you literally just like grabbing someone and feeding on them? Are you trying to like find someone like passed out in an alleyway, or are you trying to like blend in with a crowd of tourists so you can like nip a bit of blood off somebody while they're like partying? Just give us like the rough sketch.
Yeah, stealthy as possible. It's always a stealthy thing. So looking for the person on their own, the sort of dark alleyway, the person that's slightly worse for wear, maybe
Okay, so make a Dex stealth roll.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 2 successes. So you have located somebody, and I've just used the random victim roll. So as you're walking through the streets of Castello, you are eventually drawn by the sound of a gentle sobbing, and as you follow the sound through the winding cobbled streets of Venice, the back alleys, it eventually opens up into one of the many small sort of little like squares. There's a few benches. They're quite popular with tourists, and you see a young woman. She's obviously not a local by her manner of dress. She's sat on a bench, sort of gently sobbing to herself. There is what appears to be it must have once been like a bouquet of flowers, but it's been like strewn across the ground and like discarded, almost like thrown down on the ground. And she's sitting there with what looks to be a cheap bottle of white wine, a screw top with the top off it, and there's a bit of snot running down her nose. She's sobbing to herself and occasionally breaks off her sobbing to take like a glug of this wine. I assume you don't speak English.
Yeah, I do actually.
You do? Okay.
Yeah.
Occasionally she breaks off. She's obviously like a little bit drunk. She occasionally breaks off and she sort of has a bit of a shout, and you're able to gather from the sort of snatched sobs and shouts as you sort of approach stealthily unseen that she appears to have been sort of stood up or dumped by her other half. Originally they were supposed to meet here. They were supposed to have like a nice date. He was going to bring her some flowers. She was going to bring some wine to drink, and he basically chose to stud her up. She like dashed the flowers out of his hand and basically told him where to go. And now he's left. She sat there sort of sobbing to herself and like drinking this wine to sort of dull her sorrows. And she just sat on this bench in this little square on her own, sort of tears running down, sort of drying on her cheek, and like a bit of snot running out of her nose as she's like sobbing and like drinking this wine.
Is it quite well lit though, where this is, or?
Not really, to be honest.
Oh, okay.
It seems like they were basically looking for somewhere discreet to meet up. Maybe they were planning to go on to somewhere else, and then obviously things blew up, and he's stormed off or disappeared off, and she's just like plonked herself down on this bench and is like drowning her sorrows.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna, obviously quite hungry at this point. I'm gonna try and stealth up behind her.
Indeed. Yeah, and you've succeeded on your roll. You don't have to make any further rolls. So yeah, she's obviously very distracted by her own sort of feelings of sorrow at the minute, and the slightly intoxicating effects of this, what you can now smell as you get closer, very cheap wine. So like supermarket sort of bargain bin wine. And you easily like creep up behind the bench. She doesn't appear to have heard you whatsoever, and she's just sort of drinking out of this wine bottle.
Yeah, and driven by my hunger, then I shall look to, take a bite at her neck.
Okay, yeah, that is not a problem. You bite into her neck. Immediately she sort of goes limp under the effects of the kiss as your fangs sink in, and this sort of predatory bliss washes over her as part of the measures to the vampires used to hunt their prey and incapacitate them. And her arms sort of fall down by her side. The bottle's like still like limply gripped in her hand, but it's just like gently chinks onto the floor and rolls away as her arms just sort of fall down. And you're sort of basically holding either side of her arms to like steady her, so she doesn't just like slide off the bench. Okay, how much of your hunger are you looking to slake from this individual?
2 dots.
2 dots. Okay, so that will take a scene. That's the most you can the most you can take from a human without it harming them. However, in this situation, because you are so hungry and due to the effects of the liquor in her bloodstream, which will obviously affect you, I'm going to ask you if you can make me a... What did I ask you to make for the frenzy check, Giannis? It was something plus a third of your willpower.
Well, there is a frenzy roll.
Yeah, the one that I rolled was willpower, which you can click the word willpower, and then you need to manually add on 1/3 of your
So it's not
humanity,
the f-
rounding down, which is going to be 2 for
So
everyone.
it's not that button called frenzy then specifically.
Oh, it could actually.
Give it a go. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I don't
If,
know
if
what
it's
it
not,
does.
we can always ignore the roll.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
it could.
It's loads of dice.
How much willpower do you have?
I've got 6 white squares.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's correct.
That's
is
correct. Yeah. Okay, so you drink off this unfortunate woman. It takes a scene. You reduce your hunger by 2,
Okay.
and she is unharmed, although she's sort of like dazed and like delirious. And as you drink this blood from her, you feel something of an echo of the tremendous sorrow that she is feeling, sort of washing over you. I'm just going to check if that actually has any effect on you. Okay, so until your next drink of blood, if you make any rolls connected with either fortitude or obfuscate, you will get a bonus dice. As something about this blood that you have drank, the sorrow in it sort of rings true with the ability to shrug off wounds and sort of armour yourself, but also to disappear in an attempt to avoid future hurts.
And then as I sort of just slip away into the shadows, I'll just say, "There'll be another," and I'll just sort of disappear into the darkness.
Nice. And you vaguely hear a sort of a murmur off her, but she's so sort of like dazed. It just sounds like you don't know what she says, but she obviously heard you, and then you slip away unseen into the night. Your hunger sated for the moment. Okay, so Aurelio, what are you up to?
I guess we're gonna cut back to Aurelio talking to Alfonso.
Yeah, you walk into the room and he looks up at you hopefully, and he's like, he obviously assumes you've done the communion, and he's like, oh, again, I can't thank you enough, Father, for having come here. I know it means a great deal to Cara, being with her health, of being unable to get to church as she has been, and it means a lot to me as well. And he sort of like literally like takes hold of your hand, and he's sort of like wringing it as in his gratitude.
Yep. And
He says, "Oh, you must get some more of this. You must have some of this wine, Father. Your hands feel like the very grip of death themselves. You'll catch a chill." And he sort of he holds this like cup with like some of this cheap red wine up to you.
I'll take it and put it on the table. Never mind my cold hands. Here, hold yours out. And
He holds out his hand.
I'll sprinkle the pinch of salt that I took.
He looks a little bit confused.
Alfonso, there's a miracle of the Lord that has taken place in your house.
He sort of he almost knocks over his chair as he sort of stumbles back a little bit, and he's like, a miracle, Father? What do you mean?
Your darling daughter has been saved from her suffering by the Lord.
You don't mean that she's... He starts to say.
Shake my head.
The Lord has reached down and taken her into the heavens.
He looks both sort of like confused, scared, and like elated, impossibly all at the same time. And you don't even, as soon as you start gesturing, he literally like runs past you and he like runs up the stairs.
Yeah.
So it's shouting his daughter's name. You hear the door, you sort of reach the landing and just see throws the door open, and he looks in and you see he's like stopped just beyond the door as he's like looking around for Cara and like calling out her name.
Look, she lay there.
I'll motion towards the bed.
He walks over and he peels back the sheet, and you see him sort of like touching the salt scattered on there, and he looks at the salt that's in his own hands. And at this point, I'm going to say you have to make some sort of manipulation roll, because this is quite a salesman pitch you're trying to do to this guy. And normally you wouldn't even get a roll for this, but because he is like very religious, if you get like a very, very, very high success, you might pull it off.
Yeah, we're laying it on thick with 2 C's, no K's here.
We're talking you're going to need at least like 5 successes to pull this off.
Let's go. So we're doing
manipulation. I'm open to what you want to suggest for the skill. You might want to consider spending a willpower to get them like 3 extra dice.
Yeah, there's subterfuge, which is the whole of the thing here that I'm doing. So manipulation and subterfuge, and we are definitely gonna put down willpower on this, because it's basically Aurelio is relying on the fact that he's got some priestly authority to just bullshit here right now. So I can actually put in the difficulty here. So the modifier is going to be 3 from the willpower.
Difficulty
5. Subterfuge manipulation. Okay, here we go. Wow.
6 successes, so...
Messy critical.
Indeed, yeah. Okay, so we've been talking about messy criticals a fair bit, so we sort of know the deal. Do you want a stain? Do you want to somehow breach the masquerade? Maybe lose a dot in a sort of advantage you've got, or do you just want to fail?
Well, failing is not an option, so
I would say if you went for a stain, maybe it's your guilt that you've hoodwinked this good man who genuinely believes in you.
Yeah, and on that very topic, there's an interesting sort of crossroads here of this is like blatant abuse of someone who is like extremely loyal and I don't want to say dependent, but really like he's in a bad way, and there's an
he's like a drowning man desperate for something to hold on to save himself.
Yep. And at the same time, like this is kind of Aurelio's like abhorrent paradigm with this whole thing. The reason why he values Alfonso is it's tied to his conviction about basically poverty and misery.
Yeah.
In that age-old context of suffer in this life so that you can be exalted in the next. And I'll toss this over to you, John. How do you feel about this? Because convictions, one of their main things is they sort of remove, or rather, they reduce the amount of strains you get if you do bad things in service of the conviction. But in this particular case, it's the conviction is the primary motivator, and it reduces the harm that comes from the thing that it's causing. Because it's the only reason why sort of Aurelio is putting all these things, and is okay with the disappearance of the daughter, is because in the context here is that Alfonso is made to suffer. Like, it's his fate, divinely ordained as it is. So it's both like causing stains, and if we so decide, maybe lessens them. Maybe the sort of to get going here is like we could argue the sort of gaslighting abuse here is pretty horrifying by human standards. So maybe because it's one or more stains,
Yeah.
maybe two, and then if we feel like the
Yeah, I would say two. I would
minuses-
say two, but we'll knock it down to one bit because you're still sort of feeling guilty about it, but you have sort of done it to stop this guy going through more pain, but also he's going to suffer more. So I'd say it lessens it a bit, but it doesn't completely wash it away.
Yeah, and it is like by sort of more mundane morality, like it's not good, but the motivator here is something not terrestrial. So it's sort of hanging on to the fact that his fate is ordained, and it is this. So it's not great for him, but you know.
Yeah, and to explain to anyone watching, and just to clarify for ourselves here, the way stains work is you accumulate them, and at the end of the session, you make a roll based on the difference between your stains and humanity. And if you fail that roll, your humanity degrades. If you succeed, you feel guilt over your actions, but your humanity is preserved. Now, stains, the amount of stains you get, I mean, if it's just like something like fairly sort of minor, you might get one level of stain. If it's something like big like this, like effectively you've just like sold someone on the fact their daughter's been like transubstantiated, then you may get like 2 or 3. But if you're acting in the service of your touchstones or some of your convictions, so basically you're like, I'm doing wrong, but I'm sort of doing it for the greater good, that can lessen the amount of the level of the stain you would get. So whereas Johannes would have probably been getting 2 or 3 for this, because he's doing it to like preserve the life of his touchstone, the Alfonso Salvetti, and also he's trying to sort of prevent him from killing himself, basically, as far as he's concerned. That sort of knocked it down to a level 1 stain. But yeah, he literally falls on his knees by the side of the bed, and he's like clasps his hands together in prayer, and he's like, praise the Lord, it's a miracle.
She has been spared all the pains of flesh and is now with God.
He looks up at you, like tears freely flowing down his cheeks, and he says, it's wonderful, Father. I don't know what to say. To know that she'll be up in heaven with my dear departed wife, and she'll be spared the pain of her illness. And I have you to thank for it. I have no doubt, Father.
No, we thank God for this miracle, not me. I am but a man.
Okay, however, I'm going to say, since you got a messy critical and you got those stains, that as you say, like, oh no, it's God, it's not me. You can see that, like, although he nods, you can tell by the way he's like,
he doesn't believe it.
Yeah, he's basically like, oh, she's been suffering for like months and months and months, and like nothing happened, no doctors could do anything. Then like his favourite priest has rocked up, and God's been like, oh, now I'm paying attention, and has like Shazammed her away to a heavenly reward. So you tell that from like the glint in his eyes that like he basically believes that you've like saved his daughter and ushered her into heaven.
Yeah. I'll get his hand and I'll say,
As the scriptures tell us, we are indeed the salt of the earth, and your daughter was worthy. I will leave you to contemplate the word of God.
Okay, yes, Father, of course. I'll spend all night praying and thanking God for this miracle.
I'll get to, like, shuffle off to the door because I'm very anxious to get away so that I don't lose control. And I'll turn back at the door and say,
Remember, Alfonso, in the midst of your prayer to drink and eat as well.
Yes, of course, Father, of course. He says,
Oh,
as you're walking out, you hear him say, and in the morning, Father, I shall be straight to the church to again thank God for this miraculous blessing. Thank you again, Father. Thank you. And you hear that voice fading as you're
yeah,
sort of
I just I hurry away because I'm like, because all the way through the bullshitting, it's basically like,
yeah.
and it's like, no, we need to go.
Okay, so what's your plan after you leave?
I will go to the cemetery because I need to deal with this.
Okay, not a problem. So you start heading to the cemetery. So
Yep.
I'm going to now jump to our favourite two thugs on the run, Sonia and Hugo. So it doesn't take you long, the two of you, as you go to your respective meetings, it doesn't take you long to realise that you're both being summoned to the same place.
Yep.
Like I say, the sort of poor back streets of San Polo, and I'm going to ask, can one of you, doesn't matter which one of you, can you roll me a d10?
Yeah, I'm happy to.
Okay, see if we got a 1 or a 2. Okay, no, so
4.
basically if you'd have got a 1, I'd have said you bumped into Aurelio as you were like, 'cause you're both in the same sort of area, but no, you don't, and it's pretty unlikely anyway. But it doesn't take you long to realise that the two of you are being summoned to the same sort of back street in San Polo, where you meet up with the small-time criminal Arnold Capresi, who obviously Hugo is a criminal contact of yours. He's a small-time art thief who harbours the dream of one day getting, that big score that's going to sort of like get him that well-respected reputation. Meanwhile, obviously, Sonia, you have been asked by your contact, Uberto Scarpace, who is a fixer. He basically arranges meetings with people, puts criminals in touch with buyers, but he never gets like directly involved himself. It's all done over the phone. That's how he stays out of trouble.
Yeah.
But it doesn't take you too long as you're sort of basically like, oh yeah, we're both going to go to a meeting, and then you're like, oh, we both appear to be walking down the same streets towards the same place. So on your way there, do you guys chat, or do you like have any discussion about the fact that like you're both obviously going to the same place?
What's the score, Hugo?
I didn't get any details really. I just we do favors for each other from time to time, and he just asked me to watch his back during this particular meeting. Not expecting any violence or anything to go wrong. It feels like just a quick few bucks.
Well, I do recommend that you probably go ahead of me when we get nearer, because if anybody suspects anything, it's all going to go wrong.
Okay. Well, I'll walk a
few
hundred feet ahead.
Yep, you head down to the arranged meeting point, and you see Arnold Capresi stand there. Now, like I say, he's a small-time art thief. Obviously, he's a criminal contact of yours. So, what does Arnold Capresi look like, Hugo?
I think he looks like a what would you say? Like a hipster. I think he's wearing like dungarees with one of these hipster hats, with the brim, and wearing like a real long, ridiculously long coat that kind of goes down to his ankles, and everything screams like wannabe. Everything about him screams wannabe.
Okay, yeah.
Wants to be a gangster, wants to be an artist, wants to be a.
I understand. What wants to be the big man about town?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So you see him stood there, unlike his normal sort of like cocksure, easy stylings. He's looking a little bit nervous. You can see he's got basically like a Hessian sack next to him, which has like a sort of roughly bowling ball sized shape object in it. It's tied at the top with twine. He's obviously he's basically sat on a bench with the Hessian sack like between his legs, just in the shadow of the bench, and he looks up and like gives you as he sees you.
Okay. And we've done this a few times. Does he feel like he's always this nervous, or he feels exceptionally nervous this time?
He doesn't feel exceptionally nervous. You know that despite his facade of being like, oh, I'm the big time sort of criminal, he's actually like not been doing this for very long, and he's quite small. I mean, you know that like he gets off on the excitement of all this a little bit, but also he's quite nervous because there's like he's a small fish in a very big pond, and like if he doesn't play straight or he messes anyone around, like he could end up floating in one of the canals. So he's always, like I say, he sort of gets off on the thrill of this sort of thing, but he's also always very nervous because he doesn't want to put a foot wrong.
Okay. So I will. He's sitting on the bench, you said?
Yeah.
So I'll just kind of sit down beside him and kind of tap him on the knee and just tell him to relax.
He's like, yeah. He says, look, and he looks at his watch. He's like, the buyer should be here in the next 10 or so. And while this conversation's going on, where are you, Sonia? Are you still hanging back in the shadows, or have you sort of walked out as well?
No, I'm gonna hang back a bit, give it about 10 minutes before I catch up.
Okay, so as you're sort of chatting to him, you go. He says, looks at his watch. Says, yeah, the buyer should be here in about 10-15 minutes. He says, I was told Scarpace told me you'd send someone along as well to make sure to like overlook the deal and make sure everything went okay. But I've not seen anybody.
Oh, that's okay. Don't worry about it.
He says, well, to be honest, I'm glad you're here. I was starting to get a little bit nervous sat here all on my own with this here. Sooner the handover takes place, the happier I'll be.
Yeah, well, just try and relax and don't get too anxious so you don't spook anyone.
Okay. And as you're having that chat, both you and Sonia, with your sort of increased vampiric hearing, Caprese doesn't seem to have like noticed it yet. You all hear like multiple footsteps from like the other end of the street, sort of converging on the area where you are. They're not like running or moving particular urgency. It's just like you can hear like what sound like relatively like sharp footwear, the sort of distinctive clack that it makes on the cobbles walking down the street. The two of you would estimate there's maybe half a dozen people from like the footsteps you're hearing. And as you watch, you see what appears to be a middle-aged man with a moustache, and he's got 4 people with him who are obviously like heavies. They're sort of thickly muscled, well set, although they're not like carrying guns or anything, because that's very obvious. You see a couple of them have got like some distinctive bulges in their jackets, so it wouldn't surprise you to know they've got like knives or stuff like that, like tucked under their coats. The middle-aged man walks up. He's got like sort of tan coloured, like light brown coat on. Again, like one of the wide brimmed hats which are quite popular around here. He walks over. His men sort of take up positions around the bench, and he sits down next to you and Caprese. He doesn't mince words. He looks over at Caprese and he says, "And you?" And he says, "Which of you is Caprese?" And he sort of strokes his moustache a bit. At which point, Caprese says, "That's me." He says, "You want the soul?" At which point, Caprese says, Says, yeah, and he basically like reaches between his legs, under the bench, and he slides the sack over, so it's now under the legs of this moustached man. At which point, the moustached man reaches down, lifts up the sack, just sets it, and this guy's like cool as a cucumber compared to Caprese. He was trying to keep a lid on it, but he's pretty nervous. This guy looks like he's done this 1,000 times. He's not even like breaking a sweat. He puts this thing on his lap like he's looking at his lunchbox. Unties the top of this sack, looks in. He sort of jiggles the sack around a bit, like obviously he's trying to move whatever's inside and get a bit of an all-round look at it. And then he says, seems fine. He wraps up and ties up the sack again, passes it to one of his men, who like walks in and like picks it up under his arm. He turns around to one of his other men and says, give him his money. At which point one of these guys takes out from one of the bulges under his jacket, takes out what appears to be a very small, almost like a kid's sort of backpack, and he puts it down on the bench. The man with the moustache says, well, if you want to check it, Mr. Caprese, I'll wait, but I assure you it's all there. At which point Caprese like has a quick look, and you see, although you don't see into the bag unless you like deliberately look over, you go,
no.
You see like his eyes wide a bit, and then he quickly like zips up this little satchel, and he says, his voice sort of like cracking a bit with obviously like the sort of worry and the excitement now that he's like, oh, it's nearly dealt with. He's like, yeah, that'll looks fine, but Mister, it's probably not wise for me to give you my name, but perhaps we'll do business again in the future. And he stands up and says, well, boys, I think we should leave. And without another word, he and his four heavies, including the one who's like carrying the Hessian sack, start making their way out of this back alley in the direction they came. A few minutes later, you hear the sound of a small motorboat start up as they get into their vehicle and they start heading off down one of the many canals of Venice. There's an audible like as Caprese finally like lets out a sigh of relief, still sort of like clutching this like quite comical looking sort of like kid's like backpack to his chest, and he sort of sags visibly as all the sort of strain and like nervous energy just drains out of him now the deal's been done. He looks over at you and he says, thanks again, Hugo, much appreciated. So like I say, Scarpace was supposed to be sending someone, but well, I'm glad you turned up because it doesn't look like they have.
Yeah, well, not to worry. Everything seems to have gone off without a hitch.
Seems like it. And he reaches inside the bag. He takes out a wad of like euros, where like they've still got like the little sort of like bit of paper around them, and he sort of holds it out to you.
I'll just take it and put it in my coat. Thank you very much.
He says no, thank you. He says, I owe you one. If there's anything I can do to repay you, let me know. But well, I've probably lingered here a bit too long. I'm gonna hot-foot it out of here and go and put this somewhere safe. He says he like shoulders the like backpack on one shoulder, and then he looks around and he basically like takes off at a jog through the streets.
Okay. So I will walk back towards Sonia and I guess find her and say it looks like it went off without a hitch.
Yeah, I'm probably just stood literally around the corner of the building, out of sight. I was only going to come in if something happened.
Indeed, it all seems to have gone pretty much without a hitch. The two of you meet up. What's the plan?
Well, we better try and find the rest of this merry band.
Yes.
Okay.
Each one of them's got a phone.
I'm going to assume for the sake of like convenience that you've probably all got like 2012 mobile phones, and you've got each other's numbers, unless for any particularly pressing reason someone doesn't want to have one, just because it'll make it easier for you guys to like keep in touch.
I will call Aurelio then.
Okay. I'd love to know what Aurelio's mobile phone ringtone is.
No, it's permanently on silent.
Okay.
It has never rung once after he got it. So, and well, you would know this. So, yep.
Yeah. So
Maybe a message.
Yeah, but now he knows that we're trying to reach him, so at least
Yeah.
there's that.
Yeah, there's that.
yeah.
And then I'll call
So
Franco.
what message do you leave for Aurelio?
Learn to answer your fucking phone.
Yep.
Okay. So roll me a d10, Aurelio, and then obviously you ring Franco. Do you have your phone turned on like a ringtone, Franco, or like vibrate or something like that?
No, it'll just have the default, whatever the default ringtone is.
Yeah. So you got like the Nokia tune
Yeah.
starts going off.
Yeah. And it'll take him a few rings to realise that, oh, that's my phone. But yeah, he'll answer it.
Okay. What do you say, Sonia?
Where are you, Franco?
I was walking back to home.
Okay, we'll meet you there then.
Okay.
And then when I've said that, I shall hang up and then phone my contact and say everything went without a problem.
Okay. So with your roll of 2 on a d10, Johannes, I'm going to say that at some point after the next 2 minutes of real time, you'll sort of like glance at your phone and be like, oh, what's this symbol mean? And then at any point after that, you can choose to like listen to the message as you see fit.
Yep.
Okay. So you ring your contact at Scarpace, and he's like, yeah, who is it?
Guess who?
Sonia, how's my favourite leg breaker doing?
I'm fantastic. Unfortunately for me, no legs to break this evening, but everything else for you went without a problem.
That's what I like to hear. And now, obviously, we can decide this between us. How do you normally get paid for your services to Scarpace? Does he just like arrange favours for you? Does he like put money in a bank account?
I just take the favours. I don't really need the money.
Okay, in which case he says, well, as usual, Sonia, I'll mention how useful you've been next time I see your family. But if you need anything from me, you've got my number.
There is one thing I do need.
What's that?
I feel the need to beat up on somebody for a while, so a sadist would be fantastic.
He says, just give me a little time to root around, and he sort of chuckles. I'm sure I can find someone who needs your particular brand of exercise.
That would be fantastic.
I'll send you a text once I've checked my little red book.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Ciao. Right, we're going to meet Franco back at home. Aurelio, we know, is somewhere in the wind.
Okay, and speaking of that, as you guys head back to home, Aurelio, you're heading to a cemetery, or you're heading to the cemetery?
Yeah, the cemetery, and we'll be making a play for sort of fresh plot.
Given that anyone who's a local who dies in the city is buried on San Michel, pretty much as it's practically written into the sort of health and safety ordinance of the city. And you know that this goes back years, since after the Great Plague of like 1575, they became terrified that there'd be another plague, and they're like, oh, we can't have corpses or people buried on the main island, it might cause another plague, unwholesome vapours. And it sort of got written into the Venetian constitution that anyone who is physically capable of being moved to the graveyard Isle of San Michel will be moved there. So it doesn't take you long to find a recently buried plot.
It's not the first time I've been here doing this, so I'll scavenge a shovel and look for a window of time where there is not a lot of folks around, and yeah, get to work and to unearth.
Takes you a little bit of time, but you dig up a body.
Yeah,
You
and
you
all
deliberately
it
go
is
for one of the sort of poorer looking graves, so you haven't got like a really like heavy wooden coffin to like break into.
Yeah, and as long as I can get like access to the body itself, that's
Yep.
fine. And it's good eaten. And I roll it by hopefully clicking somewhere on here. Oh, wonderful. Yeah, wouldn't you know it? Messy critical.
It's a messy critical. Okay.
I will say that this is probably a this has to be a masquerade breach, right?
Well, that's absolutely fine by me.
So
now,
yeah.
obviously, just seeing you like digging up a corpse wouldn't be enough. That's technically that's grim, but it's technically not a masquerade breach. So presumably, someone has seen you, like literally, like drinking blood out of this
interfere
corpse.
with the corpse afterwards, like that. That's the like what?
So what I'm going to say is you've dug up this this pauper's grave effectively. You're slurping the cold semi-congealed blood from its collapsed veins when you hear a gasp as one of the mourners perhaps wasn't comfortable with being in a crowd, sort of turned up late, just planning on like laying some flowers on the grave, and you hear the sort of soft sort of swish of the flowers as they fall to the floor from shocked and frightened hands, and you look up to see a younger lad. He must be sort of 15, 16. These flowers have dropped out of his hand, and he's like with like fear and horror as he looks across expecting to see this grave he's going to lay the flowers on, and he actually sees this pallid vampire sort of cradling this corpse, its face buried in the neck, sort of slurping blood from the body, and he lets out a loud scream as he sees you and immediately starts sort of like running in the opposite direction.
As best as I can, while maintaining that speed is of importance now to disappear. Again, probably not the first time I've tried to do something like this, but quickly close up the wounds. There's probably not like a lot of seepage because the blood will be inert, let's say, congealed. So just to close up the damage so that there's no holes on the body. And then actually it's pretty clean eating, right? Aside from like my own face maybe, but like otherwise like
obviously most vampires would consider it extremely unpleasant. It's the equivalent of someone who's like normal blood is the equivalent of a lovely sort of 3-course banquet set out on a table in front of you, whereas for you you're like, actually I just want to leave that like sat in the open for about a month and then I'm going to eat it. Is that all right? And most vampires would be like, ugh, oh no, that's rancid.
What? Yeah, no. I will try to make it look like it was a case of someone broke in to rob the corpse, like steal their stuff, anything inside the coffin.
Yeah, that's fine. There's not really that many personal possessions inside the coffin, but yeah, you sort of like rough it up a bit and stuff like that.
Which is actually I'll put like I'll get, because that's the kind of person Aurelio is. I'll get my leather strapped, like old school watch. Just quickly put it on the corpse and put it like in such a way that it looks like it's someone's
Someone
tried
was
to,
trying to pull it
slide.
off and got disturbed.
Yeah, and I'll like put it on the hand like this, and sort of leave the hand outside the coffin, and then belt it.
Okay. Okay, so are you chasing after this person, or are you just running to like
No,
get away?
it's a case of let's disappear as quickly as possible, because they're gonna go like, oh, someone was eating a corpse, and Orly is just betting on the fact that like whoever he gets up to is gonna find it much more credible that someone's trying to rob the corpse.
Okay, not a problem. So you head off in the opposite direction, circling round, presumably as most people would do when they go to the to San Michel. You basically paid one of the boatmen to like take you over there, and told him to like wait while you like paid your respects. He's still there waiting. You jump back in the boat. He starts poling you back across towards Castello.
So, I don't think we've ever actually talked about it in any game. How much is that from a corpse? Don't have to worry about killing them. Then again, how much do they have?
The way I would look at it is basically if you're sort of slaking your hunger at the level where it would harm a human, that's basically on a corpse. It's like, oh, how much damage are you doing to the body? Because obviously a normal human body has the ability to repair itself. A corpse doesn't. So basically, if you're like, oh, if this was a human, I'd have drained and killed them. I'd have said like, basically, you're having to put such effort into like draining the congealed blood out of this body. You've like damaged the body.
So the regular bit is what, 2?
2, yeah.
Safe for. Yep.
So I say if you take up to 2, that means basically there's no damage to the body. You've licked the wound. It's covered.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So you can lower your hunger by 2. And what's your plan as you pull back to?
Back on the boat, I'll just send a text message. Just what? Home? Question mark.
Okay, so the rest of the 3 of you have met up back at the communal haven. You just sort of like, you finish greeting each other. You like sat down when you get a text message, Sonia, that obviously from Aurelio, and it just says home ?
Yeah.
Yeah, you get a text back that says yeah.
I remember what text messages cost back in 2012.
That's it.
Yeah. So I will head there as well.
Okay, not a problem. So,
but I will not reply to the affirmation.
Okay, so Hugo, Franco, Sonia, you've all met up at the communal haven. You know Aurelio's on his way, but we know it's going to take him a little bit of time to get there. So what are you guys doing at the communal haven?
Okay, so that's that taken care of. Franco, what are you going to do with all this computer stuff?
I was going to talk to one of my contacts. See if we can try and get into one of these laptops or open it up, see what's inside.
Don't you just push the button on the side and it opens?
Sonia, these things, these devices, they've all got these passwords and security features.
I will just stare at him blankly. What are you on about?
Wow, that's why we have these contacts. so we can let the experts deal with such matters. But it's intriguing what this competition or well, yeah, I guess it's a competition or
Have you looked into this company that sponsors it?
well, like I say, I thought that there'd be more information on these vast number of computers.
Well, if we know the company name, I mean, you can start something else. You know, you can look at that and whilst waiting for the information.
Well, if I hadn't have had to go and had a drink, I'd have probably seen my contact by now.
Okay, so are you planning on getting in touch with your contact now, or?
Yeah, I mean, I'll use my phone while we're waiting.
Okay, and who is this contact?
What's his? It's on the sheet. It's Nico.
Nico Albano.
Albano. Yeah. He's my contact guy.
Does he look like Steven Seagal?
If you want him to. Yeah, I'll just give him a ring while I'm waiting and see if he can help me with some computers, laptops.
Okay, and what sort of like relationship do you have with Nico Albano? If you had to like give me like a very sort of capsule description of him in like a sentence, how would you describe him? Obviously, we know he's like pretty well off.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty well off, so he talks in money. So, you know, he's good friends with me because we both got money, and he potentially overcharges, but he always gets the job done. So it's a good working relationship because I always get what I need, and he always feels like he's getting well rewarded. So
And I assume, given that you're planning on contacting him about this, he's got some sort of influence or knowledge in the sort of technical field of things.
Well, he seems to have his fingers in all the pies. You know, if he don't know it, he knows someone that does, and he'll just take a cut. You know.
Okay, so you phone Nico Albano, and he's like, Franco, how you doing?
Good. Yourself?
He's like, oh, not too bad, not too bad. Closed a few deals today, made a pretty penny into the bargain. How's the world of business treating you?
Same as always. It's steady.
He says, oh, he's like, that bad, eh? Says, steady's not sexy, Franco. He's like, you've got to speculate to accumulate, Franco. He's like, if you're not moving up, you're standing still, and if you're not standing still, you may as well be dead.
Well, that's how you look at it. But
he says, hey, he says, it's kept my bank manager happy all these years.
Yeah, that certainly is the case. I'll haven't got time for a lot of chit chat today. I've got something that maybe something you can help me with. I've got a number of laptops.
All right, okay.
I seem to have, shall we say, forgotten the passwords to.
All right, I get you.
And I was trying to gain access and have a little look.
He says, mind you, some of these laptops nowadays, he's like, he says, I could probably get a guy, but he says it's not going to be cheap to like force our way into a secure laptop. He says, but well, if you've got the money, Franco, I know a guy. I can make a few calls.
Well, you know, I'm good for it.
Yeah, of course. He says, how urgent is it? Do you need it looking at now? In a week? What are we talking?
Well, I was hoping that you'd be able to have a look at it, let's say tomorrow. It's late now.
He says, yeah. He says, look, I tell you what. He says, there's a guy who owns a shop in the Rialto. He caters to tourists mainly who are having like trouble with their cameras and their laptops and their phones. You know, the normal sort of bullshit that tourists are worried about. But this, don't pay attention to that. His shop's gaudy as all hell, but don't worry about that. He really knows his stuff. So he says, I'll give you the address. He says, drop it off there. Let them know that I sent you, and then they'll get it sorted for you.
Okay.
He says that they're open from 9 to 5 most days.
And what is outside of this conversation? What is the daylight hours currently this time of year?
Well, it's winter, so it gets dark pretty early. Although like 5 is like cutting it a bit fine.
Yeah. Well, if you could ask your man to just hang around a bit tomorrow, I should be able to get to him by 5:30.
He's like,
If you could arrange
he
that.
says I can do, but he's probably gonna want time and a half.
I'll sort that out.
All right, no problems. What sort of time do you want me to hang around till?
5:30.
5:30.
Yeah, bye.
All right, no problems. Anything else?
No, that's it for now. It was good to talk to you.
Yeah, likewise. And if you ever decide you want to get off the fence and start making some real money, like come and talk to me. Maybe we can slide you in on a few deals. Get you a bit of a leg up. Like I say, you can't stagnate in this game. You got to keep moving up.
Yep. Well, you'll be the first to hear if I'm looking for a change.
All right, Franco. Take care. I'll speak to you soon.
Yep. So obviously, I'll drop them off tomorrow.
Yep. No problems. So by the time that's all sorted out, because we've condensed that conversation, by the time that's sorted out, it's just about when you're arriving back at the communal haven, Aurelio, and it's over to you guys.
Aurelio, where have you been?
To attend to the flock.
Of seagulls?
Lamentably, the seagulls have yet to develop a proper appreciation of God's word, but one can only hope. No, it is the mortals of our fair city that I speak of. And I have been looking into Palladio, the architect, as well. Though
Okay.
I do not have much to report at this time. I have located his grave, but I'm still looking into the man.
It is hard to protect you if you go away alone.
Well, one hopes that protection would not be strictly necessary at all times. But I take note of your concern.
So, Franco's got some laptops. We don't know. And Hugo's just been doing business. So, other than the unwanted guest this morning, not a lot's happened.
Unwanted guests.
We had a strange ranting blind man knocking at the door this morning. I think he seemed to think I was his lord or somebody's lord, and he was trying to get me out of the house. Never did really get to the bottom of what it was about, as a police officer interrupted us. And Hugo and myself didn't manage to track him down before his business started.
And where's this man now?
Well, as I say, we haven't been able to find him.
Not with the police then.
No,
Well,
he headbutted a policeman and ran off.
Yeah, the policeman said he hasn't managed to track him down either. I think he's quite a distinctive fellow. You know, I think we'd recognise him if we saw him, certainly.
Unless anyone has any pre-existing arrangements, I don't see how a strange blind man would come to knocking on our door.
Did the
Well-
police say he jumped back in the canal?
No, the police officer said that he basically managed to outrun them.
Yeah.
And obviously, Franco would know that like it was quite some distance away. The trail led up to the edge of the canal, so it's possible he sort of gave the police the slip and then jumped into the canal.
So he was a rather sprightly, quite strong blind man.
Only when being chased, though. He wasn't strong or sprightly when he was dealing with Franco.
Still quite an intriguing character to be able to run away from someone at such a pace,
Yeah.
if blind.
And also the water that dripped off him while he was fiddling with the lock. All very bizarre.
And run to which direction?
Well,
He basically headed in a roughly sort of western direction towards like the nearest canal. So basically, he would have sort of from your communal haven, which is here, he sort of ran to this canal here, sort of via numerous back alleyways, before apparently jumping into this canal.
Well, I suppose unless anyone wants to go dive in the canals, we'll have to.
he did mention an order, but he didn't name it, did he? He said me and my members of the order or fellows of the order or something like that.
No, I
He
was
wa-
slowing the police down outside.
He was
Was it a monk?
He did
Priest?
smell quite drunk as well.
Yeah, because he made a lot of noise. The police turned up, so we had to defuse the situation very quickly. For the next 2 weeks,
So-
the police will be on patrol in the area. Everybody's been told.
Well, this is less than ideal. Having the police in increased numbers.
Well, they're concerned about crime in the area, so
A ranting, blind, drunk man did this. I believe it's a time to have a word with our tenants. By which I mean our two fellow coteries.
Hmm.
Both about the increased police presence, and if they have perhaps seen a blind drunk man around.
We also need a camera outside, I think, so we can see who's outside
Ah.
without going outside.
I can sort that out tomorrow when I see this tech contact. I can purchase a camera.
It sounds like a wonderful idea. I believe I shall go and talk to the tourists.
How long have we got?
Oh yeah, what's the time of day?
None of this stuff you've done's taken particularly long, so I would say we're probably on about 11.
Oh, let's go and knock on the tourist door then.
Okay, so you're going to try and track down the Anarch coterie known as the Tourists. So, since we're doing a little bit of setting building here, I'm going to sort of throw this a bit open to you guys to basically sort of, what's your normal way of contacting your tenants? Effectively, these are the coteries. I mean, is it just old-fashioned that we ring them up on the phone? Do you leave like a dead letter drop?
Well, the tourists will probably send a BlackBerry message to them. They're American. So we'll have to fire up the old BBM.
Jeez.
It's
Okay.
grim. That's the true world of darkness.
Okay, so the tourists, you send them a BlackBerry message.
Yeah.
And what about
dedicated tourist phone?
Indeed. And what about the artist Del Destino?
Well, they're a bit more fancy, so
Yeah.
we'll probably send them a letter. So the butler's got something to do in the mornings.
Okay, no problems. So yeah, we'll assume that you've got a sort of regularly arranged place to like leave letters. That's not a problem. 'Cause like you say, you guys sort of like you're nodding acquaintances basically at the moment. But yeah, you can send the tourists with some of your members who like speak English. You can send them the BlackBerry message. Or are you trying
I
to arrange
speak English, it's okay, yeah.
Yeah. Are you trying to arrange a meeting for like, obviously the artist Del Destino, you probably won't get a meeting this evening because you've left them a letter.
Yeah.
Are you trying to arrange a meeting with the tourists this evening or?
Yeah, we'll go for this evening. Tell them it's fairly urgent. Heads up.
Okay, not a problem. Where are you going to arrange to meet them?
Let's have a look at the map. We'll go for the Piazza, which is just east of the Haven.
Okay, no problems. So you arrange to meet them at the Piazza, and indeed, when you presumably all head over there, a short distance later, you can see that the tourists are there. Their leader is a man by the name of Raiden Scott. He's a thin, lanky man who wears a sort of short-cut leather jacket. He's got that wavy, sort of coiffed hair. There is a young woman whose accent might lead you to believe she's American. She seems a little bit more well turned out than the rest of them. And then the final and third member is a man called Damien, who is a rough-looking guy who looks like a hobo. He's like pretty roughly dressed. Normally doesn't really say a great deal. But yeah, you meet them at the Piazza. What do you say?
Get a move, go. Go on, Hugo. In you go.
We bring news. There has been a incident with a mortal that has startled the police. This mortal was a strange mortal who knocked on our door, who appeared frail while trying to talk to us, but who came to life and sped away once the police became involved. We've tracked him as far as the canal. He also seemed to have drip canal water when he was at the door. So we have come to warn you about increased police presence in the area as a favor, and ultimately to warn you about this individual who seems to know more about our business than we would like, and to ask if you have perchance seen such a character. Blind he was, with cataracts.
Okay, Raiden Scott, the leader, steps forward and into English with a very faint sort of American twang to his voice, which I won't attempt to do. He says, "No, can't say I've seen any people like you described, but thanks for letting us know about the police and whatnot. I mean, we're not really here to cause anyone any trouble. We're just we're just hoping to relax and soak up the vibes of Venice."
Indeed. Well, keep your wits about you for the next number of weeks. I believe that this character will return.
As you're saying that, Damien, who's been sort of, like I said, looks a bit like a hobo himself, who's been sort of stood in the background with his arms folded, not really saying much. He sort of looks up and sort of brushes his whiskers a bit and says, "I suppose it could be one of the boat people. They're a weird sort of like cliquish lot. They're always like muttering on about something."
What can you tell us of the boat people?
He says, "Well, I spend a lot of time. I like my own company every now and again, so I spend a lot of time wandering about. And I'm pretty good at like not being seen when I don't want to be seen, if you get me. And most of the people who like pole the boats around Venice, they're just there to make a few quick bucks off the tourists. They'll sing "Oh Sole Mio" and whatever if it gets them an extra few notes, but they're just doing their job. I found like when you start getting into like the poorer areas of the city, though, like the people on the boats start getting a bit weird. When you start dealing with like people where they're like their families have been like boat people going back, and like their dad was a boat person, and their dad's dad was a boat person, and so on and so on. So yeah, they seem a bit of a weird lot. They seem to like keep themselves to themselves, and they always seem to know what's going on in like any part of the city. I mean, if you want to find out what's going on anywhere in Venice, you want to ask one of the boat people about it. If anyone has seen your blind beggar man with the boat people, I mean, without the boat people, pretty much the city grinds to a halt. I mean, this whole place is mostly nothing but water.
And is there any easy way to tell these boat people from your average money grabbing?
He says, "Well, easiest way is if you go up to them and you ask them for some of the standard touristy like bullshit, the old Solomios and the whatever. If you ask them that and they flat out refuse, Doesn't matter how much money you offer them. Like most of the people on the boats, like just catering to tourists, you offer them a bit of extra money to sing a bit of nonsense. They'll jump at it. These old school people though, they won't have any of it. Doesn't matter how much money you offer them. The way they seem to see it, they're carrying on a tradition. Obviously, they take the money because everyone needs money, but they're not doing it to like please tourists. They're doing it because, like I say, their families have been doing it for hundreds of years in some cases. That's how you can tell apart. And also, if they've not got one of these like flashy new boats, it looks like it gets a nice spray down and a lick of like paint and a bit of fresh like bitumen on it like every 5 minutes. If they've got a proper like old boat that looks old but it's well maintained, that's how you will know them.
Okay. Well, perhaps we will go and seek out these boat people, see if they can't help us find our friend.
Suddenly fall silent again. At which point the young woman, Valerie Reyes, who's been, like I say, has a much more pronounced American accent, which again I won't try and do because it'd be awful, says, well, we were just, there's not much of the night left, but we were just planning on hitting some of the tourist spots and having a few drinks and, enjoying the rest of the evening. You're welcome to come and join us if you want.
I am a little thirsty. Perhaps we should be good neighbours.
Great. Glad to hear, Richie says. I've often been saying to Damien and to Raiden that I know we're tourists here, and I know a lot of people don't like us, and we're a bit loud, we're a bit leery, but we're all sort of connected by blood. We've all got to look after each other. We enjoy ourselves. I mean, why not? I mean, given the downsides of our condition, why shouldn't we at least try and get some enjoyment out of it? But like I said, we're not here to ruffle anyone's feathers. We're just here to enjoy ourselves. And if we cause too much trouble, to put it plainly, you try not to shit where you eat. And that's always been our motto. Yeah, we enjoy ourselves. Yeah, okay, like I said, we sometimes get a bit leery. We're sometimes a bit less cautious than some of the older types would like us to be. But, we try not to rock the boat too much because we're all in the boat. And if you rock it too much, we all get pitched into the drink.
We do.
And as she's talking, she seems to exude like a pleasant sense of calm and sort of a joie de vivre that just seems to like flow off her like an easygoing mist. Her presence is, you're pretty much all aware that she's probably using some sort of lower level vampiric power, but she's not like mentally controlling anyone. She's just basically exudes like calm and like, hey, let's all just get along and all be nice to each other and have a good time. That feeling just seems to roll off her like a refreshing mist. And do you guys head out with the tourists for a night of revelry?
No, because my feeding habit's a bit more noisy than theirs.
That is true.
I certainly am thirsty and keen to.
I'm guessing both Sonia and Aurelio are probably going to be like, yeah, we'll take a raid check on that.
Aurelio would stick out like a sore thumb and an old priest having a party.
It's like,
I've come to rock this place ecclesiastic style.
watch me drop some sick catechisms.
That's it. Strike up those fat organ beats.
Yeah, we're gonna party like this was. Oh.
He's got a techno remix of
Yeah.
Oh, 40 Tiana going on. Yeah.
Okay. Franco, are you obviously Hugo's planning to head out with the tourists? So you
Yeah, I'm
planning to go with?
always. I always seem to be thirsty. So
Okay. So obviously we're not going to go into the details of this night out. Basically, they hit a few tourist spots. There's plenty of drunken tourists about. They ingratiate themselves with a few of them. You know, oh yeah, we're just here to party and have a good time as well. And obviously, at various points of the night, they take a bit of blood from people. You two, Hugo and Franco, you would see that although the tourists sort of like they're very much into the party lifestyle. You know, they're sort of loud, like bombastic, like American tourists. However, when it comes to the sort of vampire side of things, you like getting that blood, they're actually like fairly restrained. You know, you notice that like what they'll do is they'll sort of ingratiate themselves with like drunken parties of revelers, and then they'll just take like a little nip off a few people over the course of the evening, so that it's like barely noticed. And the two of you can both reduce your hunger by 1. As over the course of the night you will get to do a little bit of feeding. If you want to reduce it by 2, you can do, but there will be a potential roll involved in that just to see if any complications occur. Whereas you can just take the 1 off without any roll or anything.
I want to keep it short and sweet.
I'm quite thirsty. I might take 2.
Okay, that is absolutely fine. So given the sort of revelry sort of style of feeding that's going on, we are talking a manipulation persuasion roll, because basically you're just trying to get him in like the party crowd. And
Okay. Right, this is probably not going to go well. Oh,
yeah, 2 successes. Okay, yeah, you can knock off an extra hunger as well.
nice.
As yeah, you actually find the experience sort of fairly liberating, I suppose you could say, because obviously normally, you know, you're sort of a bit more of a sort of solitary predator, whereas now you're sort of like you're with this group of other kindred who are just like relaxing and having a good time. No one's taking it too seriously. You sort of go with the flow. You maybe get a bit of an appreciation of like, oh, these tourists, although they're a bit loud, they actually are like being fairly restrained when it comes to like not endangering themselves or the kindred or the masquerade. Like they're keeping all the vampire stuff on the down low. And yeah, they probably help you out by sort of like getting you into the swing of things, and you know, sort of like helping you ingratiate yourself in with these groups of tourists. You will have worked out that Valerie Reyes obviously has the vampiric discipline of presence, which basically allows her to sort of broadcast sort of feelings of calm and sort of aspects of her sort of personality. She can sort of turn on the whole sort of like charm thing to a ridiculous degree using this presence ability. But again, she seems fairly restrained, and she seems to mainly use it to basically help the rest of her coterie and yourself and Franco to feed. Their plan, their basic sort of method of feeding seems to be they find a big group of like revelers who are enjoying themselves and getting drunk and eating and whatnot. They sidle up to him. They're like, "Hey, yeah, hi there, fellow tourists. We're here to have a good time as well. Oh yeah, let's share some drinks." And they've like got some drinks and whatever, and they ingratiate themselves that way. Valerie Reyes turns on the presence. Soon everyone's like everyone's best friend. During the course of the revelry, you know, they carry on drinking and eating. When they've like had a fair old bit to drink, the vampires will subtly like take a little bit of blood, and then eventually move on and find like another group of people, and that seems to be their default method of feeding, and it seems to work pretty well. And it probably would work without Reyes being there, but certainly having her sort of using this like good time vibes presence ability certainly makes it a lot easier. But yeah, so that's what happens with you guys, and that sort of revelry will last until, you know, it starts getting pretty late, and then they'll all start like drifting off to their respective places of rest. The tourist and likewise yourselves. So whilst that's going on and they're doing that, before we get to the end of the night and the end of the session, is there anything that Sonia or Aurelio want to do with like the last couple of hours of your evening? Or are you guys just retiring for the evening?
Can't think of anything. Like I said, I'm just waiting on that message now for someone to go and beat up.
Okay. Not a
Yeah,
problem.
I guess we might not have official business to attend to, so I will let Sonia know that I will be coming by the communal haven tomorrow night as well. But for the next little while at least, I'll be in my own haven for the day, because I'm working on the Palladio case, as it were.
Okay.
So if needs be, I might be there, but I'll be checking in at the communal haven as well. And that's where I'll be retiring, because I need to talk to my research assistant.
Okay, so Sonia, you will get a text from Scarpace, who tells you that in Santa Croce there is a man by the name of Giuseppe Camino, who is a small-time drug dealer who apparently has been cutting his product a little bit too much for Scarpace's liking. And since like he's set up several buys,
Yeah.
he's worried that this inferior product is going to reflect poorly on him because he set up the buys. And he's like, obviously I don't want him killed because Daddy's no use to me, but since you said you wanted to work off a bit of your energy, I'd like it if you could let him know that I'm incredibly disappointed with his recent behaviour and that he should mend his ways forthwith.
I will most definitely pay him a visit.
Excellent. I look forward to hearing all about it. And then he hangs up. And the two of you are just about to go your separate ways when there is a knock on the door of your communal haven.
Oh, I shall once more answer the door.
You answer the door, and there is a gentleman stood there wearing a smart three-piece suit. He's holding an envelope in his hand, and he says, good evening, I'm looking for, and he takes out a phone from his inside pocket. I'm looking for Aurelio and Sonia.
And you are?
He smiles and then says, yes, of course. My name is Lazaro Duncern. I've been sent here to deliver this. He holds up the envelope.
Okay, thank you.
I take it you are Sonia then?
I am, yes.
Ah, splendid. He bows deeply, hands this envelope to you, and then says, good evening, and he turns around and walks off.
Okay.
You can see on the outside of the envelope, in immaculately calligraphied writing, it says Aurelio de Prospero and Sonia Mele in flowing script. And there is like an old school like wax seal on the back of it with a little black ribbon on it.
Okay, I shall. You don't think this has got any things on it, do you?
Well, what it will hopefully have is merely writing, though. I do wish they would stop putting the names on the cover. If the courier isn't smart enough to remember he's delivering the letter to, never mind, never mind. Let's see what it is.
I shall crack the seal and have a
Okay.
read.
You pop it open, and the letter says, "Honoured family, it has been far too long since our brothers, sisters, and cousins have gathered amidst the splendour of our ancestral homes. Now that the recent unpleasantness is behind us, I would invite you all to a gathering to take place on the evening of the 9th of January at the Ristorante alla Corone. Formal attire is expected, as is a certain level of decorum. As our attentions turn from the past to the future, we have welcomed kindred outside our own family into our ancestral home. In this spirit of renewed friendship, we extend this invite to those coterie mates of our blood who are not themselves of the blood. This message will self-destruct in 10 seconds. Of course I jest, but in all seriousness, the writing will begin to fade from this letter within a minute of you having read it. I look forward to your attendance. Yours, Romano Petroselli."
Looks like I need a new dress.
It occurs to me that I do not have a formal dress.
We'll get you a suit.
To be fair, you dress as a priest. That's about as formal as you get.
Yeah, but I think in this instance, like I think Aurelio is thinking like, okay, so
So we
Like,
can take
this
you
is-
to a tailor and he'll make you a suit.
And as you're discussing this, you glance down at the letter, Sonia, and you notice that indeed the writing has slowly started to just like fade away on the paper
So it
until
has got a ritual on it.
after a few moments you're stood there holding a blank piece of paper, and even the writing has gone off the envelope, and then the paper and the envelope and the wax and the ribbon literally crumble to a handful of fine ash.
These are the big boys. Okay,
Yes,
so
which is
9th
why
of January, you need a
Hmm.
suit, I need a dress. Yay?
That remains to be seen. Not entirely. Let's just say that the clay has yet to set. There may be some muddy eddies yet in this current that we find ourselves in.
I don't expect anything else from a family that was at war very recently.
And luckily for yourselves, since you're talking about dresses and suits, etc., obviously today is the 2nd of January, tomorrow is the 3rd. The date given on the letter was the 9th, so you've got a fair amount of time before this takes place to make whatever preparations you see fit.
Oh no, I'm
So-
going to make sure that Aurelio's suited and booted before the next moon.
So he would have mentioned that he's very poor when it comes to money, and maybe we can find like a tailor who would be interested in giving a priest a free suit out of faith. I don't know.
One of those extremely religious tailors.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say, if you need a suit, I can set you up with a suit. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, I suppose like
I know a man.
upon reconvening, it would have been.
Yeah, I mean,
talking about
obviously, like
this.
you guys can like meet up and like chat about this. Obviously, as you know, the invitation was effectively extended to your coterie mates as well.
Yeah,
Flex my 4 points of resources.
yeah,
on the
which
suit
would be
for you.
like a, unless we go for like ultra, fancy, expensive stuff, like with 4 points, probably just get a suit off the rack all day.
I'm just imagining Franco now being like, what are we talking, like Armani?
Yeah, it's like,
Versace.
yeah, like which designer do you want your suit from? But yeah, no, Aurelio is, as it turns out, just basically broke. His only value is to be found in the Word of God, and perhaps a little corpse eating.
Maybe a bit
But
of
yeah,
black arts
that
on
is-
the side.
God and necromancy, they go together like, you know,
Life
Things.
and death.
yeah. Jelly and peanut butter.
Yeah, so that would be something that would be like a slice of life situation, because Aurelio doesn't really like. Okay, I need a suit. I know what a suit looks like, but I don't know how to buy it. So there's probably like a buddy comedy situation where Sonia takes him out to the tailors.
Yep.
To get fitted, etc.
Okay.
That'll be like a, because we need to arrange for that.
Yeah.
We can't just barge in at midnight. But yeah, so to compact, we of course let everyone know that this is an invitation that has been extended to everyone. Also, probably means that everyone will be there who is able to, and that might be very interesting from every angle.
Although
Because
it does depend on how, and you would know this, it depends on how literal the letter's taken, because technically it's basically, oh, we want Hecata, and anyone who's in a coterie with Hecata is fine. But
yeah, they're friends.
but technically, like if you're like the tourists, there's no Hecata in there, so they're not on the guest list.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I suppose like extended family.
So family meeting.
So there'll be a bunch of interesting people coming, no doubt. So probably.
So you two don't have to come because, you know,
It's not
But-
compulsory.
you're welcome.
It's an opportunity. I see it as an opportunity.
Do we feel like there's any risk?
There's always risk with this family. You see, we're not all as well behaved as Sonia here. You might find that certain appetites are unbecoming, and certain tempers might be distasteful.
You might see some people being eaten.
If you, I will say this and speak no more on the matter going forward, but if you have objections, I would endeavor to swallow them.
It'll still be enlightening or eye-opening, nevertheless.
Oh yes, oh yes. And there should be opportunities to meet very interesting people for all of us.
And I'm also going to say that since you are like minted, Franco, and Hugo and Sonia, since you both have like underworld connections, you would be aware that the Ristorante alla Corone is a restaurant in San Marco, so just to the southwest. It's actually here, and it's a fairly well known place. It's a modern Mediterranean and Venetian cuisine sort of Michelin star restaurant, effectively. You know, multiple elegant dining rooms. It's quite a sort of posh eatery. However, it's sort of like a really poorly kept secret that the restaurant is reputed to be connected to the Venetian mafia via the Corone family, although like it's never been proven, like no one's been able to prove it, otherwise the place would have been shut down. But those of you with criminal context would know that the Mala del Brenta, the Venetian mafia, like recently they've sort of, a number of like high profile like people in their organization have been like busted and arrested by the police. So like a lot of them have sort of gone to ground, but a lot of their sort of, let's call them sort of money laundering operations, for want of a better term, because it's very difficult to sort of trace them. They're very good at covering their tracks. A lot of places like this restaurant where they're like, everyone's sort of like, oh yeah, there's like the mafia are all up in that. No one can prove it, so what can they do? But you would know of the place. Like I say, it's like a 3 Michelin star restaurant.
Yeah, so Armani for Aurelio.
Okay, and this is where we draw the evening and the session to a close. Obviously, we'll sort out XP, humanity rolls, and whatnot in a few moments. But just going to say thanks very much for playing, guys. I hope you all enjoyed the session. And
Yeah, thanks, William.
thanks to anyone who's watching. We did have someone who briefly popped into the chat who basically said, I just wanted to let you know that I've really enjoyed the sessions. Keep up the good work. Greetings from Germany. So thank you very much to that person.
Hello to Germany. Auf
Thank you.
Wiedersehen.
Hello.
Indeed. So we're going to wrap up the stream here. Thanks to all my players and to anyone who's watching now or in the future. Hopefully we'll catch you for the next session. Take care.